Okay. Can you tell? Are we up? Just make sure the stream's up.
It says upcoming.
Okay.
Oh, I now see you, so
Okay.
it looks like it's good.
Excellent. Okay, let's get rid of you. All right. Intro time. Welcome to the Spur of the Moment podcast. I am your host, Justin Spurr, and I am joined, as always and forever, by my co-host, wearing a hood today. If you're watching this on YouTube, the incomparable Jordan. Everyone. That's right.
Howdy,
I'm drawing.
howdy.
I'm drawing attention to it right away. It's. He's wearing a
It's
hood.
cold. I'm
It's.
sorry,
I'm
but
wearing a sweater. He's wearing it. We're
it
freezing here. We're in
it's like
Canada.
-13 and it's cold.
That's how Jordan is doing. He's cold. So on today's show, we're gonna once again, as always, we're gonna go through the news. We got some Marvel zombies. We're gonna talk about the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, and yeah, we're gonna talk about a bunch of different stuff. And then later on, we're gonna hit the book reports, and we're gonna try to say at least one nice thing about some stuff that we might hate, and we're gonna do that later on. So stick around for that. So to start off with, Jordan, I don't know if this counts as what if news because I know we have our weekly segment at this point, news about what if. But the executive producer of the new Marvel Zombie show has confirmed it's not going to be adapting the comic book storyline. It's pretty much just a spin-off of What If.
Of the show, of the
Yeah,
What If show.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
I mean, I don't dislike that. I didn't mind what they did with the show. I just wanted it more fleshed out.
I mean, that's fair. We have said that. I mean, I didn't like that episode, but I'm biased. I don't like zombie stuff. Like, there has never been a zombie thing that I've actually liked. So I'm kind of a biased opinion. But we did say that if they fully fleshed out these ideas, they would be better. So who knows? But it's a different cast. It's like Miss Marvel is apparently the lead, and I can't remember who else is in it. Hold on. You say what you thought about it while I read this article real quick.
Of the original or of the very idea of
Of,
this?
of a full of a full spin off of it. What's your
Full
take?
spin-off. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how it does more than one season, but I certainly, if I were to do it, I would have it. I mean, you start with showing how the like you either start it showing how the outbreak began, or it's like mid outbreak and over the course of the show you show how it began. But I mean, if it's not following the comics, I don't really know
Did they
where you take it.
didn't they show how it began? It began with
Did they?
yeah, in the first one it began with someone. There's a patient zero. Isn't it Hulk? Hulk is patient zero, I think.
I don't know. I
I do
don't remember.
recall that episode does show where it begins, but this sounds just basically it's more or less the same thing, but it's more fleshed out and it's a different cast now. So Miss Marvel is the lead. Apparently, according to this article, they've already recorded it. Um,
I
so
mean, that's kind of lazy then.
I just don't see the point. I don't know. I
If
don't
it's
know.
if it's just the same as the episode but a little bit longer, that just feels lazy.
Yeah, well, it just kind of comes across like it's just gonna be. And hey, man, this is either good or bad depending on your whether or not you like The Walking Dead. But it just kind of sounds like The Walking Dead with superheroes. And I'm not really. I mean, to be fair, I
Eh,
don't.
I
Just
never really got into that show.
I think if they were to do an actual adaptation of the original, it like stands a chance at being interesting. But if it's just like another group of survivors, then trying to get to a place again, but like prolonged over the nah, that doesn't interest me.
No, not really.
Um. Oh yeah. I just pulled this up real quick. There, James Gunn's Peacemaker, season two. He said that it won't be confusing, apparently, because it that was
It's always bad when you have to quantify your show with that statement.
yeah right where it's like oh it'll fit in the DCEU or DCU
Don't
easily.
worry, it'll definitely make sense. Wink.
I mean to be fair, the only I guess um we've only
Wink.
seen you didn't watch Peacemaker, right?
No, I didn't.
No. But we've only seen in that show at the end of it. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. But at the end, Aquaman shows up. Aquaman, the
Yeah,
Flash.
I remember you telling me about that, and he makes fun of the fish fucker.
Yeah, he fucks fish. Yeah, there's a running gag about how he fucks fish. Um, but at the end of that show, yeah, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller as the Flash and Aquaman, and then Henry Cavill's torso and obscured Gal Gadot show up Um, and yeah, there's a joke about how he fucks fish. But that if so, I don't know if they're gonna do a thing of like, oh, season two now, like season one also took place in the DCU. It did take place in the DCEU, and like the DCU's Aquaman is just Jason Momoa, and their Flash is Ezra Miller. Or is it going to be a case of like, are they going to actively go out of their way to explain? I don't think they should. I'm at the point where I'm sick to death of things going out of their way to explain a thing. Like, just be like, it's in the DCU. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, this show can just take place in what existed before this new universe. They're two separate things.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, but it's a
It,
James Gunn thing.
this doesn't need to be in the new
Yeah,
universe.
but it's a James Gunn created character, so he's gonna want it to be, right?
Sure, but the thing is that it's a multiverse. That character can exist in both universes.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, he could just be like, in season two, this is the DCU version of Peacemaker. It's like, there's no.
And whatever version shows up in the movies is the movie version.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if he was to take the Peacemaker into this new universe that he's creating, that version of him can still be played by John Cena,
Right.
and he's just that movie universe's version of him.
Exactly. Well, the DCU is going to encompass it all now, right? So it's all. Well, at least that's what they've said. It's all supposedly canon. So the animated stuff is supposedly canon. The video games are all canon. The movies are all canon. The TV shows, all of it is all one universe.
Yeah, one multiverse.
No. One. It's all in the same universe.
Oh, that makes no sense. That's stupid.
So it's like so for example, like we talked about it before, that Creature Commandos show. They're gonna do an animated version of it, and then when those characters appear in live action, the actors who played them in the animated version of them will then play them in the live action version of them. Basically, they're the same characters.
Okay, so like, what about like the game that's coming out? The Suicide Squad fights the Justice League.
I
Are
don't.
those supposed to be the movie versions as well?
No, those are very specifically the Arkham versions.
So that no, not every video game.
That's just
They've
what
already
that's what-
they're already incorrect in their statement, which is typical DC.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, maybe he means from a certain point. Once it actually. But to be fair, they keep changing the
Just
start line.
that
So they were
that just feels like
they
a
were
like
oh,
a
it's
stupid thing
definitely
to do.
it's definitely the Flash, and then the Flash bombed, and they were like, no, it's definitely Blue Beetle, and then Blue Beetle bombed, and they're like, no, it's definitely Creature Commandos, it's definitely that. It's like, just start with Superman. We've talked about this before. Just
Yeah,
start with Superman.
and start
Um,
over and start fresh and just
Stop cherry picking which ones you want to keep. Like,
uh,
but I mean, Peacemaker is new enough that I think he can get away with it. But I'm fully like, just start new with your new Superman movie and go from there. This next article I kind of left in because I thought it was funny. The Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse writer promises a satisfying conclusion. I just kind of figured, yeah, he better.
I
The
mean,
fact that he had to come out
yeah,
and say
with
something like that.
with the terrible cliffhanger he left us on, he better.
Right? Yeah, right? It's just like, yeah, of course. Yeah, you can't get away with... And it's like, it ends on a massive cliffhanger. Just kidding, we're doing part 4.
No.
This one was
No.
too long. As is, the second one is too long. We'll get into kids' movies being too long later. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. Of course you should. Of course it will. Josh Hutcherson has apparently confirmed that they are making a Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which just kind of feels like a duh. Although I did hear I did hear some, like, there was like rumblings that it wasn't automatically greenlit, which blew my fucking mind. I was like, what?
Really?
But that thing made like $1 bajillion opening weekend. Why would it have not gotten greenlit like the Monday morning of the weekend it opened? That's so bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Be like, get Josh Hutcherson in now.
That makes no sense to me.
Get Matthew Lillard in the stupid costume. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. But I mean, I like it. I'd watch a second one.
I'll watch 100 of
I'm
them.
down. I'm down.
They seem like they're gonna be like, they remind me of the Saw movies, where it's like, yeah, those movies are bad, but I fucking love them. And like,
absolutely.
It was a bad movie. I stand by that. I don't care how many angry TikTok comments I get. That movie was a bad fucking movie.
I mean, yeah, but the
franchise
franchises.
It was still
Like
great.
it matches everything that the franchise is, which is confusing, stupid lore,
Right.
which makes no sense
Yeah.
and doesn't have any actual thought behind it.
Convoluted nonsense. Yeah, that's the whole
That
point. The
is
whole
absolutely what Five Nights at
Yeah,
Freddy's is all about.
that's why people like this shit. It's because it's
And
convoluted
and so like
nonsense.
they got the visual aesthetic down, and they
Yeah.
got the convoluted bullshit down.
Yeah.
They I mean it's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's everything
Yeah.
that I expected
And
it to be.
I loved it. I mean, there's so many moments where I was like, I'm just having a great time, like clapping, like and I was like, this is a terrible. Like I kept turning to him, being like, this is terrible. Like, yeah, okay, I'm allowed to enjoy it
Yeah,
now.
absolutely it
Like,
is in
like
the best way possible.
it's one of those was one of those movies for me that it was fun to experience with another person. I don't know if I would have had the same level of enjoyment had I watched it at home. You know, I don't think it would have been the same. It wasn't nearly as much fun as watching
No,
it. And this one of those movies
yeah.
that it reminded me a lot also of and you're gonna first be like what, but it reminded me a lot of when we went to see the second Space Jam movie, where it was like that movie was
Oh, how we
terrible.
were just making fun of it the entire time?
We had a great time because we had way more fun making fun of it to each other than we did watching the end. That was kind of what Five Nights at Freddy's was like for me, where it was like, yeah, this is fun, but because I'm having a good time with my friend, not because I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was fun seeing scenes that are like ripped right from the
Yeah,
games.
it'll be
Like I appreciated it a little bit more for the fan side of things, but it was also just silly nonsense, which
yeah.
is what that series
It would
is.
be a great movie to have like friends over and like drink
Oh, absolutely.
and
Drinking game?
just
Yeah.
toast it. It would be so fun. That would be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Moving on, we're going to talk about the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. Man, that's a mouthful.
Why?
That they're apparently making. They have announced some cast for it that makes me go,
Why?
why? So apparently Gerard Butler is coming back and he's going to be playing the dad again. Why? What's the point? I already don't understand the point of these live action remakes, and we're gonna get into those later on in this episode. But I already don't get them enough as is. What's the point in just having the original people be if I wanted that, I would go and watch the original. If I wanted to hear Gerard Butler play this character, it's like it's
Well,
just
especially because I mean, they again, and we will get into this, but this is a problem that plagued me with some of the live action live. I'm doing air quotes, but my arms are in my sleeves, so you can't see it. Live action stuff where it's like you don't mean live action, you mean photorealistic. It's still 3D. You can't have live action dragons.
yeah.
Dragons don't exist.
Yeah, and it's
It's
like
not live
so
action.
we're gonna dress up Gerard Butler as a Viking and have him say lines from the original movie. Like, what's the point?
Why?
Is
Why?
he
Why? Why? Why?
is he the only one? Like, if you're gonna do this, and again, I'll get into that later. Do something. I mean, hey, maybe this is DreamWorks. Maybe DreamWorks is gonna be different from Disney, and take a chance and do stuff that's different. But I just don't see why. And if you're gonna bring in Gerard, is it because he's the only guy who's like physically capable of being his character? I don't
Like to
get it. I
me,
don't see the point.
the only way you do it for me is if it's not a kids thing. Like
Nah, you don't want that either.
you
Trust me.
step more. No, I don't. I don't want it to be a live action thing at all. But I'm saying to me, the only way that it makes sense, it's much like when a creator takes like another person's video off YouTube and you transform it into something else. Like to me, the only way that a live action thing works is if it is like completely different than what the original intention of the product was.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take it into live action, the only way that it works for me is if instead of it being a kids thing, it's meant for
Yeah.
adults. It does more serious stuff and it
we'll
dives into that
we'll
more.
talk about
But
the difference between
it never
adaptation
works.
and straight recreation later because not a live action remake. It doesn't always automatically not work. We'll talk more about that later.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
But I just don't see the point now. Like there's another casting they announced. Nick Frost. He's gonna be playing one of the dad's friends. It's like okay, at that point, yeah, I get that. But like, I don't know if they've announced any other casting yet. But it's just why it's always like, why bring back the original guy? That's the sticking point. I don't. I've kind of desensitized myself to the live action remakes at this point. But I get that they exist and they serve a purpose. But like, and
No,
it's
they
at least
don't.
it's at least
They
far
don't. They
enough.
don't serve. They don't serve a
At
purpose.
least it's far enough removed from that where I'm like, okay, yeah, there's maybe something you can do that's different, but like it's not going to be different if you just bring back the original cast. I mean, what is he going to be the one who's the same guy, and he's going to play him differently? Then again, at that point, what's the point of hiring Gerard Butler? Anyway, let's move on. Um,
The only reason, like the only way that a live action person, if you bring back the original, the only time that I can see and say, okay, I get it, is if that particular character was entirely created and based around the actor's likeness, personality, like to the point where you can't really separate one from the other. I can't think of a specific example, but
yeah,
like that's
but
the only time I can maybe see why you would have to bring back.
but my
I guess like if it's Jim Carrey, for example. You're never gonna get a person who can do that the same as a
yeah,
Jim Carrey.
but then you do the. I mean, we'll talk about that. We're definitely gonna talk about that later. But then you do it different. Like I don't think there's a necessity to bring. And it's the same thing I feel sort of in a similar way about Broadway now. I used to be like, oh, just get the original guy, just get the original guy. And then we watched Dear Evan Hansen, and we learned why you shouldn't always just bring back the original guy. The movie still upsets me. Um, and yeah, so it's like I'm like, no, yeah, I get it now. I get why. No, do something different. Like that's my first, last, and always comment is do something different with the material if you're because I don't have an inherent. Obviously, we are big superhero guys. We've seen 1,000 interpretations of characters, right? So it's like I don't have an inherent issue with trying to reinterpret characters so long as you're as long as the story is interesting. Someone I follow said that once, and I like, yeah, so long as it's interesting, then fine, take a chance, cool, take a swing. Sometimes the swings don't work. Moving on though, they have announced that the final season for Young Sheldon hasn't aired yet. They're just filming it now, but they've announced there's going to be a spin-off. Well, they announced 2 spin-offs. There was just one where it's a Big Bang Theory spinoff. Weirdly, it's still and it they haven't said what it is. I'm kind of hoping for Penny, a young Penny. That'd be kind of interesting. I think she's a
That'd be
character that
interesting.
her backstory. I
Although
think
my headcanon is still that she's the same character as she was on 10 Rules for Dating My Teenage
oh, that'd
Daughter.
be funny. Although
That's my headcanon. It works.
although a Leonard prequel would also maybe be kind of interesting to me to kind of see them do a similar thing they've done with young Sheldon and like soften his backstory a little bit and maybe make the mother a little bit more 3-dimensional. I think that could be
Um,
potentially interesting.
I mean, if they're doing a spin-off of Big Bang Theory, I've always been kind of surprised that they didn't do a sequel.
Yeah, well, what I
Like
want,
following like maybe the kids of Leonard and Penny, and like you have the voiceover of the parents talking or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I was always surprised by that. What I've always wanted for the end of Young Sheldon, and I'm really hoping they do it. And you said this to me, where
Did
someone,
I?
yeah, well, you said that someone has the theory, that the reason why the explanation for the inconsistencies between the Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon and the narration, is that it's Sheldon as an adult writing his memoirs, and
Oh
he's
yeah. I saw yeah.
fudging details to make himself seem nicer, better, or maybe it's like this is
Himself
his
and
perspective.
himself and his family to
Yeah,
sound better.
and
Yeah.
I like that because that explains why, like, yeah, like Amy will pop in periodically to correct him on stuff, and I really liked how, yeah, through that narration you find out that him and Amy had a kid, had a
Yeah.
son, and that he named him Leonard, and that Sheldon insists that it's named after Leonard Nimoy, but Amy says it's named after Leonard, his friend.
Yeah.
And I really like that. What I've said is they should do something similar to, but better, obviously, to Roseanne, where it pulls back and it's him at the laptop. Like the final scene in the show is it pulls back and it's Sheldon at the laptop typing out the memoirs, and there's Amy, and you see the son, and you see his little, like their little house or whatever where they're living, if they're still living in the same apartment, and you
That'd be
have kind of
cute.
an epilogue, because Jim Parsons is still
And you
involved in the
bring
show,
back
so
you bring back some of the like original like
as many of them will come
Penny and
back, yeah.
and yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
simple, easy version of this is just Amy and Sheldon. You only got to pay two people. But yeah, the more idealized version of it is you get Penny and Leonard and Raj and Howard and all of them back. And they're now older, and their kids are a bit older, and yeah, I think that would be kind of cute and a kind of nice way to. But if they're doing Big Bang more spinoffs, then I don't know. But that'd be kind of a nice way to button the Big Bang Theory universe. Um,
I agree. I agree.
I also think oh yeah, sorry, this spinoff that they announced though is it's gonna be uh Georgie, the son, the older brother, and the girlfriend,
Really
and the kid. And supposedly, according to what's being said, is it's gonna be more traditional sitcom. So it's gonna be a multi-camera sitcom like Big Bang Theory was. Which I'm like, well, why?
interesting.
But I don't get the point. If you're gonna take those characters, why would you not keep it in the same style? So it looks like young Sheldon still. It's a very odd choice, and I don't know that. I don't necessarily think those characters work in a traditional sitcom
I don't
format.
see it
No, I don't see
personally,
it either.
but
But and also, to be fair, I don't remember him much from the actual Big Bang Theory show. But he wasn't like married with a kid in that, was he? Because he eventually shows up.
from what I remember, I don't think he was, but maybe they had a one-off line how he was married and we just never
We
saw
just never
her.
saw them. Yeah, no, fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. I can't believe they're still doing spinoffs of Big Bang Theory. I guess is the
I
is
mean, they will beat that dead horse until it stops making them money.
yeah. Apparently, I guess because young Sheldon is
Successful.
yeah, more successful than they kind of thought it would be. I mean, I it's funny because I saw not this season, but it was a couple seasons ago. It's like there was a trailer for. I was like, oh shit, it's still on. Like that could have sworn it got canceled an eternity ago. Like I can't
I
believe
thought
that.
it finished a while ago.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
developed it. I think at this point it's been on. No, maybe not. Maybe Big Bang Theory had more seasons, but it's close. It's pretty close. I think Big Bang Theory might have 13, but it's pretty close. It's like 8 seasons or 7 seasons is quite a lot for a show like that. Um, but yeah, apparently it's gonna come full circle. They said it's gonna come full circle, and it'll end with him winding up in California and at the university or whatever, Caltech. They keep hinting at that.
interesting. I mean, I think that he's going there as a student. I think at this point.
Caltech? I don't remember. I haven't watched it. Last I had seen. I don't really. I just sort of keep sort of subtle, like I check in
I
every once in a
watched
while.
up until like season 4 or 5, I think, when it was on
Uh,
net when we had access to Netflix.
yeah. Um, I know that at one point he was going to university, but I think it was just a local university. I know that they had offered him a position to Cal, or he had the opportunity to go to Caltech. There was definitely a name drop on
Yeah, like
Caltech.
I remember them like yeah, he went there on a tour with his dad or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
or
yeah.
his mom or something and like you see the cafeteria and stuff and it's like they've got the emotional music playing like as if you're supposed to recognize this even though on the show you have no idea where this
Yeah,
is
and it
or what
doesn't
this
look the
is.
same because it's a different kind of
No.
camera setup. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that they've named. I don't know if he's there yet. I know that they've name dropped it a few times in season 6. The last sort of season it was he was going off to Germany for the summer, and that was kind of
Right.
that's where he left off. Um, I don't know.
I don't
But
think I
yeah,
saw that season.
it'd be interesting to see how it definitely rounds out. So in a new segment I'm calling Tom Cruise news. Um, apparently they're making Top Gun 3, and they're trying to make Edge of Tomorrow 2, which I don't really
Oh,
know how that works or what you do for that.
I don't either, but I like that movie,
I
so I'd
don't
be down for
I
that.
don't really understand how you do Top Gun 2. I mean,
I don't
Top Gun 3. I
I
mean,
don't think I don't think I ever watched any of them.
you've never seen Top Gun? I could have sworn you
I don't
did.
I mean, I know the classic "Going to the
Yeah,
danger zone." You know that scene, like
yeah.
where he's flying on the plane. I know that one because that's a pretty iconic scene, but I don't think I've ever actually seen the movie.
I saw the first one. I watched it because I went through a phase where
I
I was like,
definitely didn't see the second one.
I went through a phase where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna become a classic movie guy. So I went and I watched all the classics, and that was one of them, and it just didn't do anything for me. It's one of those ones where I always say I'm gonna watch it again because I'm like, oh, maybe with my like film cinephile brain that I have now, maybe I'll enjoy it more. But I kept getting bored. That's all I remember. It failed
That's
the phone
fair.
test multiple times, or I was like, oh, I'm bored. Um, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know what you do for an Edge of Tomorrow 2 though. Like, what is there to? What kind of? Do you just do a time loop
How did the
again?
first one end? They broke they killed the alpha thing,
Yeah,
right?
and then they close the loop. Yeah, so he goes
So
back in the loop.
I I guess the way you have a second one is you have them do another invasion and he goes into a different loop,
What I would do is I would do it where um I
or
guess
it's
um
like a prequel story about
the chick.
the other people. Yeah, the chick.
Oh, they want Tom Cruise, so it can't be a prequel. It has to be a sequel.
Well,
Um,
then I got nothing then.
I guess what you could do is you introduce a new character and you have it where that new character gets the Edge of Tomorrow, and Tom Cruise is now the
The
girl.
mentor.
Yeah, the mentor, and maybe it's a girl this time.
Yeah,
And I
maybe.
don't remember if they wind up together as a couple.
I
Or it's
can't
like
remember.
it's Tom Cruise's kid maybe gets stuck in the time loop and we do it with like a kid dad thing maybe because that seems to be hip
Yeah,
right now. Like I'm really going for a kid dad thing.
or it'll be a multiverse thing, and it'll be the world where he didn't succeed because everything is a multiverse.
I mean, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Fantastic Four. We're gonna talk some Fantastic Four. Um, so
Fantastic Four.
I'm
Da 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 da.
I'm sure you remember that Pedro Pascal is supposed to be Mr. Fantastic, which I'm not.
Yeah, still don't see it.
I don't see. I'm not into it. I'm not into it. I mean, no, I'm not into it because I just don't see it. I don't see him as Mr. Fantastic. I had other better. I like some of the other rumored casting as well, but Pat,
John Krasinski.
I
John
mean,
Krasinski. That's who I want.
I'm indifferent towards that. He's just Pedro Pascal is not the guy for me. But more than just the looks and the feel of it, he's too busy. He's too hot right now. It's like he's dropped out of part of what makes people think that he's definitely Mr. Fantastic at this point is they've pushed back the filming of it to the further on and towards the end of this year. And he's dropped out of another movie, which name doesn't matter. But he dropped out of another movie, which is like they think that they're moving um, the project around to suit his schedule because he is currently doing The Last of Us
Star Wars.
and Star Wars. So like I mean, why would you commit yourself to such a major role? Like for me, my dream when you're starting off a franchise like this, get someone unknown, get someone who we don't know. That was that way with Benedict Cumberbatch and Doctor Strange, where it's like get a guy who's not doing so many things, so we can get him showing up like in single scenes and whatever, and we can really establish a universe and like have it where they're in random, like do what they did with Mark Ruffalo, where it's like, oh, Mark Ruffalo can be in Iron Man 3 for just a couple minutes, and you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you get a guy like
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal, he's just too busy. Like he's too busy to do a Marvel. Like why would you sign yourself onto that? Especially like I mean to be fair, he's barely doing a Star Wars. He doesn't show up on set anymore. He just does the voice in a recording booth now, and they don't take off the helmet, which is what they
Yeah,
should have done.
because he's too busy.
Which is what they should have done to begin with. They should have never shown his face. I stand by that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but moving, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Star Wars because they announced they're making a Mandalorian movie.
Why?
I don't know. It's gonna be
I mean, was 3 seasons of television not
not enough.
enough?
Yeah, it's apparently according to the official Star Wars website, it's gonna be directed by Jon Favreau and produced by Dave Filoni. And it's so weird because Dave Filoni, like they already he has a movie that's coming out that's supposed to be like it's gonna be a finale to all of the Dave Filoni-ness in the Star Wars. So like, yeah, why other than to transition the Mandalorian out of the Mandalorian, which is what they were looking to do anyway. Like that was a thing with like season 4. They were like, oh yeah, they're looking to transition the Mandalorian out of the Mandalorian, and it's gonna be about the other characters whose name Bo-Katan, I think. I don't actually remember. I stopped watching that show because it got too referencey. I was just like, ah, like the minute Luke Skywalker showed up, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm good. I'm not interested in this
Star
anymore.
Wars has been kind of really not doing it for me lately. The video games are okay.
Yeah.
I'm liking the video games, but as movies and shows and stuff,
It's just not
it's just not doing it
the only
good enough.
the only one that interests me that I don't know. I heard it got canceled. I don't know if it's still coming out. But that one where it's about the Sith, the Acolyte, that one looked
Yeah,
interesting.
that one sounded
That what
interesting.
I. But yeah,
That's
Andor, man, Andor did nothing for me. I tried watching the first episode and it's just like I don't get
it's
it. Everyone says this
boring.
is such a good show, and it's so dull. I'm like, I
It's,
don't
it's
get it.
I just found I tried watching the first episode and I just found myself going like, who are these characters and why should I care?
Yeah, yeah, and I just didn't care. It just
Like,
did not do anything
I
for me.
want them to take the story out of like the Skywalker era and like go either Old Republic or High Republic or like really really far in the future where we're no longer tied to Luke and the
The
Empire
Empire
and
yeah, no, that's what the
like
Acolyte's supposed to
do
be.
something different.
It's supposed to be High Republic era, and that's why. Yeah, that's why I want to. I mean, we talked about it as a video game where you play as just a random Jedi, but like also a show where it's just a random Jedi that's
Yeah.
just going on adventures, doing Jedi stuff in space, and yeah, has nothing to do with the Empire, and it's just a monster of the week, episode of the week. Maybe there's a bit of serialization where there's like a big bad Sith they got to fight in the season finale, but that's it. It's like they go to a planet, there's a problem or a mystery, they got to solve it, and then
Yeah.
they do some lightsabering in the center of it. Like that's what I
kind
want.
of kind of like I don't know if you remember, but there was those books where it was about they had the ones where it was Obi-Wan as an apprentice and
Yeah,
Qui-Gon as the master,
yeah,
and they would go to the planet and it basically played out like a cop show where
yeah.
like they would go to the planet, there would be the problem that they would have to solve, they would solve the problem and then they would move on to the next adventure in the
Exactly.
next
But do
book.
that, but don't make it
I
Obi
want
Wan.
no, yeah, like make it just a random, like a random Jedi or whatever.
Yeah.
But like that formula is what I want
Yeah,
out of a show.
do like a 15 to 20 episode season. Let have us really get to know these characters and like really put the time into it. And yet don't have Luke Skywalker or
No,
Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon
the best
Jinn
time
or
place to have it in is the High Republic, where you're not attached or like stuck with all these characters that come from the movies and stuff, and you can just have a fresh slate of characters. You know they're not building up to the Empire. Like maybe there's some like High Republic era version of some evil thing that they have to fight against,
exactly.
whatever. But like fresh characters at that point.
Exactly.
Fresh story, fresh
Right.
slate.
That's yeah. When it was like that's when I liked the Mandalorian the best was when it was just he was just a guy who existed in the Star Wars universe and had to get by and then yeah had to like survive and didn't feature Jedi and then like I said Luke Skywalker showed up and I was bored as shit.
It just
Um
becomes another Star Wars thing at that point.
yeah
Like
it's
it
like a
loses everything that makes it itself.
exactly. And then finally final bit of news. Apparently they're remaking the Blob. And it's weird. I'm kind of completely okay with this for some reason. But I want it to be like I want it to be like made by like Blumhouse, and I want it to be like gnarly and like graphic and violent, and like when the blob rolls over people, it like melts them like horrifically, like
Oh yeah, like it's
cryogenic.
like an acidic like blob from D&D.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like you see them like melt down. You see like the muscle and the sinew and just the bones, and it just is horrifying looking. And yeah,
Yeah,
like
absolutely. To me that's the only way it
yeah,
works.
because what's funny is I've never actually seen the original Blob, but I would
Me
like to.
neither.
That's on my list of ones I'd like to go back and watch. Um, but yeah, yeah, I'm like yeah, that's the only way. It's the only way. That's why I kept the story. I'm like yeah, I don't. Sorry, did I say Jerry Bruckheimer? Oh no, I thought it said Jerry Bruckheimer. I was like, whoa, that's a swing. But apparently it's gonna be made by yeah by Warner Brothers. And then I think that is it gonna be it for the news.
I do have one thing that I wanted to do.
Oh yes.
So, this is just going to be a very brief thing, but recently Matt Pat announced that he was retiring as the host of the main channels, food, film, uh, uh, game, and style, and that there was going to be new hosts that are taking over. And I just wanted to take a moment and be one of the many, many people who congratulate Matt Pat on all that he has done for the internet. Um, I have been watching his videos pretty much since the beginning. Not right from the beginning, but pretty close. And he definitely got me through some of the darker days of my life where I would have like just a really bad time at work, for example, and I knew that I could come home and get to enjoy some of his primo quality content. And while I know the writing and all that isn't changing, and the the channels are gonna keep plugging on, and I do wish them the best and hope that they have all the success in the world, because I like most of the new hosts already. I have no issues with them, but I will be sad to see Matt Bat stepping back from that, and so I just wanted to take a moment and kind of talk about that. But I
Yeah.
wish him the best, and I hope he enjoys getting to work on all the new projects. I definitely understand burnout, so like I understand the choice.
Yeah. Oh man, hey, I get burnout. I get wanting to do something different or not wanting to get stuck doing something, and then um yeah, so I get it, and people are being real weird about it though, I will say. It's he's not
Like
dying.
I No, that's the one that where I get like a little bit exasperated. Where like on the subreddit and stuff, people are like, "Rest in peace, Matthew Patrick," and I'm like, "Whoa, man, man's not dying. He's still
Yeah.
gonna be around." Like,
Yeah.
I understand being sad and being disappointed. I'm sad and disappointed. Change sucks, but
Yeah.
the man is still alive. Like,
Yeah.
let's not put him in the
When
grave.
people are like, "Oh, he's quitting YouTube," he's not quitting, and that's the thing.
He's
All
stepping
these,
back.
I'm so sick to death of people being like, "It's the YouTube apocalypse," and like, if you actually watch these people's videos, like of them being like, I'm quitting YouTube." And to be fair, a lot of them are like being really like clickbaity, but most of them are like, "Oh, I'm not quitting. I'm not. I still have to pay the bills. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
changing the kind of content I'm doing." Like people are like, "Oh, Captain Sparkle." No, what Captain Sparkle said was he wasn't going to be doing Minecraft videos anymore, and he hadn't really been doing Minecraft videos anyway, so he just kind of made it official. And like Meat Canyon, people are like, "Oh, Meat Canyon." Well, no, what Meat Canyon said was he wanted to focus more on original characters than doing parodies. He didn't say he was stopping. It's like these creators aren't quitting, and also Meat Canyon. I love Meat Canyon. His videos, every time I see one, I'm like, my god, this could be a movie. Like
yeah.
every one of his sketches. Like he did the one where it's um oh, it's the Toy Story. Andy finds
Oh
out
yeah, the
you have
Andy finds out
yeah,
that yeah, 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 yeah,
you
yeah.
have cancer, Andy. That's you have cancer. But
Anyone who finds out that we can talk gets cancer.
but
Um,
that I was like that would make a great like thriller.
oh, a horror movie, like a thriller
A
horror movie.
drama where it's like the guy sees like, and you don't even have to call it Toy Story, but you have it where it's like the guy sees his neighbor talking to his toys or whatever, and he becomes slowly obsessed. And finally, he captures the toys and tortures them. And then, yeah, you see him die at the end, and you just make it. It doesn't have to be cancer. You can just be like, oh, anyone who finds out we can talk dies. And have the toys be really nice and sweet, and just have it be really graphic and, like, awful as he
They
slowly dies.
anyone who sees us move has a heart attack.
No, no, I'm thinking something a bit more gruesome than a heart attack. But yeah, something where it's like they die really, really sadly. I'm like, that would be a good movie. And then he did another one where it was like, uh, you won't care so much about the people involved in it, but it was a Taylor Swift thing. And then all the Swift fans got really mad at him. But it was the concept of it was basically, the guy she's currently dating breaks up with her, or whispers to his like buddy that he's thinking of breaking up with her, and all of a sudden all the Swifties all turn into this like like savage like creature
Like,
like mob, and they all take over, like they start to overcome him, and he tries to like escape. And then like they all like he eventually runs into her, and he's like, I wasn't gonna, and she like does this like really creepy, her head like snaps around, and it's really like unsettling. And I'm like, this would also make a great horror. Like he's so like he and his original stuff too is just so good.
I can see why the Swifties wouldn't have approved of that
Yeah, no,
one.
it was really funny. It was really good. And I'm like, yeah, I get. But the point more was these guys aren't. And like Tom, the one guy mentioned Tom, and he's like, yeah, he's not. He didn't say he was quitting. He just said the nature of what they're doing is changing. And it's like, of course,
Yeah,
it's the internet. They always have to deal and like the
I mean,
extreme of
in terms
anything.
of Matt Pat, I saw one person's comment, which I mean, this is the way that I choose to look at it. He got a promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
He's now instead of being the hosting position, he's going into the more management side of
He's a
things where he works
producer.
in the
Yeah.
background and he's a producer.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
promotion. Like he's given himself a promotion, which I think after 13 years of doing everything that he's been doing for however like for the many hours of the day that he takes to do it all, man deserves a promotion.
Also, I mean, there's no way he's naive enough to not know that this is the business.
Yeah, right.
Like the
Um,
personality, the Matt Pat. Matt Pat is the brand. Like, there's no way he hasn't realized that now. That
oh man is very, very,
he
very
can
smart.
sell himself
He
apart
knows what
from
he's
game
doing.
theory. Yeah, I think that's what he's like. He can be like, I'm Matt Pat. I did X Y Z, and
Uh, Sorry. Andrew Sutherland says, "Can you add links to these creators after the show?"
yes, I absolutely can. I after the show, I go in and I edit all the description and whatnot. Yes, I can throw in a description or a link to Meat Canyon and Matt Pat
Matt
and
Pat,
I'm
the
I'm
other
not
ones
really a
we
huge Captain
mentioned.
Sparkles fan. It's just that was in the like if you're up with your YouTube news. But I will absolutely Meat Canyon and Game Theory. Yeah, absolutely we will. Meat Canyon is great. I love Meat Canyon's videos. His stuff is so good.
And I have a
It's creepy and
definite.
upsetting. Like he knows how to take a thing and make it just his art style is just so
Oh,
so
his
good.
art style is upsetting. The Toy Story one is very, very
Yeah,
upsetting.
it reminds me of like a real old school like
Ren
uh
and Stimpy.
and yeah, Ren and Stimpy. I was gonna say generally Adult Swim, but when we were kids, like late night Teletoon, like that
Ripping
era.
Friends.
Yeah, Well, this was a show that you. I did a video on it where someone told me what it was called, but it was like Captain Star, and it was the one where it was the guy in the wheelbarrow, and it was he had the captain had like 5 heads.
It doesn't sound
Oh,
familiar.
I'll show it you to you. I'll show it to you later. But it reminds me
Okay.
of that. Yeah. Good luck to Matt Pat.
Yeah, best of luck.
We joked, but hey, if he ever
I
wants to
got
show up
very,
here,
very emotional, like
yeah,
if he so definitely like I get it. But yeah, no, I if he ever wants to show up on here, he has an open invitation to come and chat
I
with
mean to be
us.
fair, most people have an open
Most
invitation,
most people do, but
but
him in particular.
so with that, we're gonna move in to the second half. But before we do, it's sponsor time. This is our sponsor section. This is the section where if you would like to sponsor the podcast, if you would like for us to try to sell something on your behalf, we will do so. If you would like it, you can email. We'll talk about how you can do that at the end of the show, actually. We'll get there at the end of the show. But in the meantime, this podcast is brought to you by the Arete Podcast Network and aretemedia.org. That's Arete, ARETE media.org. You can go to their website. They got all sorts of podcasts. We're in the big main podcast link, as well as there's a podcast about pro wrestling, about musicals. There's one about Goosebumps. That's pretty fun. They got all sorts of fun stuff on that website, so you can go check them out. And also, if you're looking to start your own podcast, they will absolutely help you out. They have the resources. They have the tools. They are very helpful. If you want to talk to us, we're amateurish, but we will also help you get set up with them, with anyone. That's aretemedia.org. All right. So with that, we're going to move into book reports. Now, the book report this week, the assignment was to say a nice thing about a thing you hate. And usually I would let Jordan go first. But in the spirit of what he has picked, I have an overly long prologue that I'm going to do first. In the spirit of what Jordan has picked on this podcast, I made the bold statement that I hated Batman Returns. I said I fucking hated that movie. And so I figured in the spirit of what Jordan had to go through, I would watch Batman Returns and try to say something nice about it. And Jordan, I need you to know that I went in with the absolute expectation that I would be like, I was a kid, I was wrong, I didn't understand, I appreciate this thing's contribution to cinema, to the Batman lore as a whole. And when I tell you I fucking hate it more now, oh my god, I hate it more now. It was a torturous fucking experience. It was awful. I hated it so much. It was bad.
Every
It's such a
moment.
bad movie. Sorry?
Hated every moment
I
of it.
hated every moment of it. And I'm going to say the nice thing about it up top. Penguin is one of the most upsetting characters I've ever seen put to film. I don't like him. He's gross and awful, and his backstory doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. his backstory is that his parents toss him in the sewer because he has ugly hands, because Tim Burton is obsessed with people who have ugly hands for some reason. At least he was in the 90s. I don't know. And his parents dump him in the sewer, and he somehow manages to survive into adulthood and develop enough criminal connections, despite everyone finding him horrific, that he has a gang that works for him, that all follow him like diligently. It makes no sense. I fucking hated it. It drove me crazy. But Danny DeVito is like, he pulls it off. Like, it is, you kind of forget it's Danny DeVito. You're like, yeah, I hate this character, but not because of the performance. The performance is really good. Also, for a movie called Batman Returns, Batman doesn't show up. Like, he's in like 3 scenes. Bruce Wayne is barely in this fucking movie. Like, he's not in it. He's barely in it. He's in like 3 scenes. And Catwoman is awful. Like, when I was a kid, I thought that she like fell out of a window and got magic cat powers. Like, that's what I thought it was. Like, you know the scene where she's like being like all the cats are around her? I thought that she got magical cat powers. And it turns out that no, she's just like she's like too good at her job, finds out something she's not supposed to, and her boss, who's Christopher Walken, pushes her out of a window, and then cats try to eat her. And then
that's upsetting.
Yeah, and the subsequent head trauma makes her hate men for some reason, and it's like she hates Batman, but has no real reason or motivation to hate Batman. She just like, Batman is fighting Penguin, and then she just kind of shows up, helps Batman, and then like punches Batman in the solar plexus, and then Batman, because he's been punched in the solar plexus, instinctively like just goes bang and punches her in the face, like instinctively, like just like as you would if someone punched you in the solar plexus.
Right.
And she falls off the roof and decides that she wants to team up with Penguin. And the only good scene in the movie that I actually liked, was there's a scene where Penguin has hijacked the Batmobile and is driving the Batmobile via another truck and is just having a jolly good time driving the Batmobile around. And he's just like, wee, I'm driving the Batmobile, and he's trying to frame Batman. And that scene was fun. Otherwise, I hated it. It was so awful. I just was like, that's why I messaged you, and I was like, Jordan, remember the assignment is you have to say a nice thing about the thing you hate, because I hate this so much. It was torturous. And it was one of those ones where it was like, at an hour and a half, I was like, how is there an hour left in this? How is this still going? It's so bad. I hate this. Yeah, it was not a good time. Was there anything else I had to say? About Batman Returns. Yeah, it's definitely this, and Edward Scissorhands have definitely made me go, do I hate Tim Burton? Like, do I hate his movies? And then I went, but I like Nightmare Before Christmas. And then I remembered that, Jordan.
Sorry, you remembered that what?
Nightmare Before Christmas isn't a Tim Burton movie.
Oh, isn't it?
No, it's got his name on it.
Right, it was based on a short story, wasn't it?
That he kind of wrote, yeah. But no, it's directed by another guy, and it's made by another team. He had very little to do with that movie.
Oh, so I guess really the only thing that he has to do with it is its aesthetic.
A little bit, yeah. He definitely had some input on the aesthetic, but that's kind of it. And I think his aesthetic is just weird and gothic, so I think he just has been associated with it. But yeah, that and maybe Sweeney Todd. I don't hate Sweeney Todd, but it has a bastardization of that musical.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't remember really watching Sweeney Todd the movie. I think I have.
I feel like you have, because I feel like I've seen
I don't
you
really
watching it. I have a memory of being, oh, you're watching Sweeney Todd, and then talking about how it's a bastardization of that play, because it is a bastardization of that play. If you like that play, I like it because I actually like Johnny Depp's versions of a lot of those songs better than the original, because he's got kind of a more soft rock voice, and I like soft rock, so
right.
Yeah, I like his stuff better. But I was trying to I think that's the only Tim Burton movie I like at this point, because I don't like either of his Batman movies. I did not like Edward Scissorhands. and I can't think of it.
I remember liking, or at least not hating, his Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh yeah, he made a Planet of the Apes movie. I forgot about that. Yeah, I didn't hate that. You're right. That was weird though. But I think he didn't write
Yeah.
that. I think he just directed. I think he's one of those guys who like his. But also, we're gonna talk about another Tim Burton movie later. So it's like when he's not, when it doesn't have his aesthetic, it's kind of not as bad. But also, I don't. Yeah, I just. It's funny because I'm gonna finish up with Batman Returns, but it's gonna dovetail nicely into what you're gonna talk about, where it definitely it felt like synergistic in the sense that like, yeah, this is what happens when you totally allow. But also, I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, so I say this with kind of an asterisk. But when it comes to Batman, maybe when you let a director do whatever he wants, it's awful. Like it's awful.
Mhm.
It was just like, yeah, this has Tim Burton stank all over it, and man, it's just not. It's just, ugh. It's not fun. It's just not enjoyable. The action is not very good. You could tell the suit is not very mobile, so he doesn't get to do much. Also, and we're gonna talk about it when we get to yours. Um, Batman kills a bunch of people in this. Like, there's a point where he pulls up in the Batmobile, and he has a device which allows him to spin the jet of the Batmobile around, and he sets a guy on fire. Like, he knows the guy is there. He doesn't. So yeah, Batman. Batman just killed that guy with the Batmobile. And with that, we're gonna wrap up our prologue. This has been an overly long prologue about a previous Batman movie. With that, we're going to go to Jordan's book report, where I remind him that the assignment is you have to say something nice about what you're about to talk about.
Okay. So,
What did you pick?
well, was picked for me, but um I have four movies that I'm going to be talking about. Three and a half, four. One of them is technically the same movie but slightly different.
I would
So
argue. I would
do
argue to
do it
skip to
do
the
do
end. It's
do.
completely different. Would be my argument.
Um. So we begin with Man of Steel, and I've been trying to think of the right way that I want to word this. How much you enjoy these movies will entirely depend on how much you approve or like or dislike the very notion, the comic book idea of superheroes are gods.
Hate it.
I don't like that. I don't think it works. I don't enjoy it as a story beat or a story idea to begin with. So these movies, for me, were always destined to fail. And then when I first watched these when I was younger, I couldn't articulate that.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't feel right, didn't feel like Superman. The characters didn't seem right. The writing was atrocious. The pacing was terrible in most of these. So, with that all being said,
In most,
uh,
stop, time out. Most, sorry, hold on, flag on play. Which one of these doesn't have bad pacing?
I would say the first one.
Really?
Of
Really?
them all, of them all, maybe
Fascinating.
Justice. Maybe no, Justice League's pacing is terrible, never mind. But yes and no. Superman's first like Man of Steel story, it follows an arc. It has the beats that it hits, and it doesn't feel like you're rushing
Yeah, but
through
how,
any
how
of
can
it
you
really.
say? How can you say it has good
But
pacing
I hate it.
when we sat
I
there
no
and made
no,
fun of
I
the
didn't say
30-minute prologue?
I didn't say it had good pacing. I said of all of them, it has the best pacing.
Okay, no, fair. That's fair. Okay, totally fair. So continue. Sorry.
Those are very
Okay,
different and distinct points that we
okay.
could make
We
there.
we flagged on the
No,
play. We
the
flagged on the
first
play. Determined. No penalty. You may continue.
so, and it's funny that you bring up the first 30 minutes because that's about the only nice thing that I have to say about this movie. Those first 30 minutes where you're following Superman's dad and like you're seeing Krypton and all the alien stuff, and it feels like a very fun sci-fi movie that has nothing to do with Superman. Um
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and those are fun.
Yeah,
Like
I remember the first time
I
watching it, being
enjoy
like, "Am
those.
I not watching a Superman movie? Am I not watching a
Yeah, no,
Superman movie?"
it's very confusing when you remember that it's a Superman movie, but like you got laser pistols, you got like Avatar, like animal that he's flying
See,
on.
I used to say
Um,
I think he'd be good at science fiction, but we've seen his science fiction output. So maybe
so
if we
so
did a
like
science fiction that wasn't Star Wars, maybe it'd be
yeah,
better.
maybe. But for me, that's about the highlight of the movie is that beginning part, and then we get into the actual movie, which it just goes downhill from there.
Yeah,
Um, so I am going to make the argument here, controversial opinion maybe, that he was told by the studio, Zack Snyder was told by the studios that he had to do a Superman movie. He didn't want to do a Superman movie. He wanted to do a Batman movie, but he was told by the studios that he had to do a Superman movie. Um, because everything to do with that
no,
character.
I do get what
Well,
you mean.
let me when I arrive at the Zack Snyder Justice League movie, I will explain what makes me think what makes me think that. But everything about that character is not Superman. It's
Yeah,
Batman.
but that's
Everything from how brutal he is to the fact that like in Man of Steel, there's a point where he's fighting Zod. Zod kicks a bus at him, and does Superman try to stop the bus? No, he just jumps out of the way and lets it crash into the building.
here's what I will say to
Everything about
that.
that character, even in Batman versus Superman, is not Superman.
Here's what I will say. I will say two things about that particular criticism. Number one, no, I do think that he wanted to make Superman. His idea for what he wanted to do for Superman is, well, what he claims, what he says, and what Snyder Bros will say. That's the part I'm going to play today. Is they would say that his intention is for it to be deconstructionist. So it's supposed. You're right. It's not Superman, and that's the point. It's supposed to be deconstructing the very idea of Superman. Also, the notion of Superman being like Batman or being dark and trying to make him like trying to instead of because Superman typically is supposed to be we want to rise to be Superman, and the Zack Snyder movies as a whole, I'm just going to say this preemptively before we get into the other ones. Their desire and intention is to pull Superman down to our level. Is to be like Superman is just like us, shitty. But the him being like Batman stuff, that has everything to do with the fact that Christopher Nolan and his brother produced this. A lot of that darkness and a lot of that stuff that you're talking about, that was notes from them. A lot that came from them. So that's what I mean when I say
Yeah, so that kind of feeds into my point.
Christopher Nolan
Um,
ruined Batman. So whenever I say Christopher Nolan ruined Batman and Superman, this is what I'm talking about. This is the
that
impact
kind
the
of
Dark Knight
feeds
had.
into my point though, is that yeah, he is Batman. The guy who made Batman came in and made him into
Pretty
Batman.
much, yeah.
They followed the formula of what made those movies successful and turned Superman into Batman.
Try to, yeah.
He's Batman.
Yeah, and before
He's
we
about as
get
bad. He's about as bad. To quote a Boy Meets World line, he's about as close to being Batman as you can get to being Batman without
without
actually
being,
being Batman.
and I would say about in regards to Man of Steel specifically, and I've always maintained this. It's okay in isolation. It's fine if you want to look at it and you want to approach it as this is what. Hold on, let me finish. This is a Superman movie that is it's a shitty. This is the shitty art house like pretentious like version of Superman, and this is what like an auteur would think Superman would be, and then we don't do anything else with it, and then we come back 5 years later, we make a proper Superman with color and joy and optimism, and we're like, oh yeah, this is like, what if we did Superman as like an independent art house piece, like that with that approach to it, it's fine. It's what they do afterwards that I take issue with. Apart from the big thing you're going to talk about.
So okay, again, and this is where I wanna emphasize this. I understand the point. Like I understand the point of like the humanity sees him as a god and like he wants to be like more human, but because he has to be in the role of Superman, Superman is a god to these people. So that's why like he's less nice,
Yeah.
I guess is the way I would put it, is because he's trying to fit into this role of what everyone else wants him to be. I get that's the point. I don't like the point. I will never like the point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
I will never appreciate it for what he wants it to be because I don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
So like I understand the point of like, okay, Zod comes to the planet and Superman has to fight against him, and like the point I will say this time around, him breaking the neck bothers me less.
Interesting. Interesting.
Because
Really?
I
That's
get
interesting.
the I understand what he was going for. I understand this time around. First time I watched it, I was so viscerally upset that he wasn't Superman,
Yeah.
that I couldn't like see what Zack
But
Snyder was going
but
for. But
to be
this time
fair,
around, I understand. Let me finish my thought here. This time I understand the thought that it was essentially a Zod had stated he was never going to stop, and Superman had no choice. His
yeah.
hands were tired, and the only way that this version of him
Yeah.
felt that he could stop him was by putting him down.
Yeah.
Now, I would make the argument that I would still make the argument that in that scene, that is not a Superman thing to do.
No.
The Superman thing to do would have been to lock him away in the Phantom Zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would have put him back in the Phantom Zone and been like, "All right, well maybe I'll let you back out when you're really willing to see reason." Da, 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 da.
But
And then he
like
would have flown around. And then he would have flown around the world 3 times, made time go back in time, or made
no,
time go in
this is
reverse,
not
so
Superman the
that all
movie.
the damage, so that the damage would have been undone, and all the people would have not been killed.
Well, I don't. But the thing is, I don't have an inherent issue with the idea of following up on like what they we're jumping ahead, but the idea of like holding a superhero or Superman accountable to the damage he causes. Although most versions of Superman would have cleaned up the damage he caused.
I mean, exactly. That's the
But
thing.
I don't. I do. My thing.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I don't disagree like with having it be there a fallout or the consequences of an action or anything like that. But the character has to stay in character, and he's not
Yeah.
Superman.
He has to accept the consequence, whereas in Batman vs Superman he doesn't. He doesn't accept that. He never. He just seems to be irritated that he's being put through the hassle.
Yeah.
My thing with Man of Steel and I've always said this, and I'll stand by this. And I've said this as a justification to you many times. I don't take issue with the neck snapping in and of itself. Um, I don't because, and I don't take issue with he's not Superman, because and him flying through buildings and like causing massive destruction. If the point is yes, he's not Superman because technically he's not Superman yet, right? This is the first time he's put on the costume. He doesn't have a name. He doesn't have an identity as, and I talked about this in separate videos of the idea of the identity of the hero themselves being separate from the secret identity. So like Peter Parker and Spider-Man are two different guys, right? They share a body and and personality, like they share elements, but they're not the same characters. And it's the same thing with Superman and Clark Kent. They're two separate, especially with Superman and Clark Kent, they're two separate identities and two separate guys. And that's before he's discovered the identity as Superman. And so to be like to come back and make a Man of Steel 2, where that's the point, where it's like, yeah, he wasn't Superman yet, and this is him. That was the guy's first day, and what a disastrous first day it was. And he has to come back from that, and he has to deal with having killed like the only other one of his kind, essentially, right? Like deal with that, the emotional fallout of that. If that's the point in that, if they had made it Man of Steel, but the question is, would Zack Snyder have been capable of doing that? Because there's a reason why the next one has Batman in it.
So here's what I'm going to say in response to that. That if that had been the point, and if that had been the direction they went with, yeah, maybe it would have been fine. But the issue that I have is that I don't think that was the point. I don't think that was ever the plan for what he wanted to do. I think Zack Snyder's point was that he was a remorseless alien that had no sympathy. And the next movie that he makes, which is where I'm leading into Batman versus Superman,
Sure,
reinforces that.
but
Where he is a not a psychopath. What's the one where they have no emotion?
sociopath. He's a sociopath.
Sociopath.
Yeah, he's
He's
absolutely
a
sociopath.
he's a sociopath who has no remorse, no feelings, no guilt about the thousands upon thousands of people that he killed when Zod millions
Here's
that
what I will
he caused
say,
the death of.
real quick. Here's what I will say in terms of history, because we don't need to recap the plots of these things. I don't think, right? We can agree
Oh
on
no,
that. No.
I'm not doing
Yeah.
that.
Okay. The he didn't want Batman, right? Much in a. I know that you said he did, but he didn't.
I argue he did.
He wanted to do Man of Steel 2. He was made to do Batman versus Superman because Man of Steel 2 did not do well and was critically like lambasted, and Warner Brothers are a bunch of panicky bitches, and so they were like, shit, we gotta, what makes the money? Batman makes the money. Let's shove Batman, and so that's why Batman gets shoved into this without any effort put into explaining his inclusion.
I mean, I just from the way that the character in Man of Steel is portrayed, written, and acted, I maintain he wanted to do a Batman movie. But
Probably,
I
I
will make that
mean,
I will argue that until like my face is blue until I
yeah.
die that he wanted to make a Batman movie and was stuck with Superman. And then
Uh,
in Batman versus Superman and I'm gonna get to that. But then in Batman versus Superman, they finally gave him the ability to use Batman, and that's why the movies all of a sudden shift focus, and Batman's the main character. Batman versus Superman, Justice League, all of those movies,
I don't know
Batman
about
becomes the main
I don't know
character.
about Batman versus Superman. I don't agree with that. The Justice League ones, yeah, I could see the argument there, but not Batman versus Superman. I certainly don't think
It's,
they get
I mean,
equal billing, but I don't think that it's purely a Batman movie.
I mean, okay. Here's what I'm gonna ask you when it comes to Batman versus Superman. What is it?
What is
Is
what?
it a Batman movie or is it a Superman movie?
I would
Because
say
I don't know. I can't tell you.
I would say
There's
it's
two main characters in this movie, and you don't get enough time focused on either one of us, either one of them, to make it a good movie.
I would say it's two things. It's a Batman Superman movie, it's in the sense that you know how they had those Batman Superman comics. It's that, um, and it's a Justice League prequel. At least it wants to be. It does it badly.
But it also wants to be a Superman sequel. The
Yeah,
issue
he
ultimately,
wants it to be a
and
Superman. See, that's why I'm like he
the
wanted to
ultimate
do Man of Steel too. That's what he
The
wanted to
issue
do.
ultimately with that movie, and this has been talked about by people that are far smarter than me and you many, many times, is Batman needed a standalone movie.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
You
And
needed
there
to
needed
have,
to
you
be a
needed,
Man of Steel 2. There needed to be a Man of Steel 2, and that was more deliberately because the problem is Man of Steel was not created with the intention to make a franchise out of it. It was created to be a Superman franchise, and then Avengers comes out and changes the game. So and then they were like, "Oh shit, we need a Justice League." So then the sequel was retrofitted to be a Justice League kickoff movie, and it doesn't work as a result.
so, okay, we're now going to fully jump into Batman versus Superman. One nice thing about that, I like Wonder Woman.
Did you say you also
Uh,
don't hate Henry Cavill Superman anymore?
I see how he could have potential.
That was the thing that shocked me. I was like, "Holy shit!"
That was,
He said a nice thing about
what
Henry Cavill Superman.
I did after the Joss Whedon Justice League. Yes,
That might be a controversy. We're gonna get there.
where
That might be a hot take.
where where he actually got to be Superman. Uh, but we're
Let's
still on Batman
let's
versus
let's let's
Superman.
power through Batman versus Superman because I'm far more interested in what you have to say about Justice League.
Okay. I don't. I don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
No one does.
I think he's the Joker.
I mean, yeah.
Uh, I don't like what they did with Doomsday, but I also learned because I had to. I wanted to look this up and see if this was something that I had the right to be upset about. I didn't realize that in the comic he actually was like an ancient Kryptonian
Oh
thing.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't realize that he had a basis in Krypton.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
irritates me. That now irritates me
But
less than
also,
it
he's
did when
not
I
a
watched
clone of
this.
Zod like he is in this.
No, he's not. But he at least like has basis in Kryptonian,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
think
yeah,
that he
yeah,
did.
yeah. He's a
I didn't know. I didn't know that he
Kryptonian like
did.
super weapon or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
He
I've seen
was
it.
he
Yeah.
was he was originally he's like an ancient Kryptonian that a person did a bunch of experiments on and basically put him on ancient Krypton, the planet, and then he would die, and then he would bring him back, but with the memories of his previous dying, and keep putting him through until he would survive. And he remembered each of his past lives, and that's what drove him crazy and caused him to hate everything and wanted to murder everything.
Interesting. My thing about
Um,
Batman versus Superman ultimately is it makes people think that Batman has more of a chance against things. Like, I'm so sick to death of seeing people be like, Batman could beat Kratos. No, Batman could not beat Kratos. Kratos is a god who caused two apocalypses. No, it's
who
not.
has no mercy.
He has no mercy. He would not. He wouldn't stop. There's so many of these. Like, what's the point in this? And it's like, because the reason
Uh,
why Batman can beat Superman in this is because this comes from the Dark Knight Returns, and that in the Dark Knight Returns, the reason why he beat Superman is because he had known him for like 20 years, and he had known him
yeah.
for long enough to build up a. And this is dumb, and it doesn't make any sense. And their conflict is like, this could be solved if they had like a 2-minute conversation.
Um, I will say, I dislike the fact that Batman kills, but in this version, it makes sense. He's been doing it for 20 years. He's savage. He's brutal. Okay, I can look past that.
Yeah,
Don't like it, but I can look past that. Um, Superman is still not Superman and is a
this is the
sociopath
point
and
where it bothers me because it's just like
and
he is Superman at this point, right? He's gone through that period of becoming Superman, and yeah, Superman is just a weird, awful sociopath, and I hate it.
he should be Superman, but he's not Superman.
Yeah, he's Superman in name
Uh,
only.
I don't hate the costume.
I never
That's
hated it.
another
I never hated
that's
it.
another that's another nice thing that I'm willing to give. And yeah, I like Wonder Woman. Something about that theme,
Yeah,
like
that
when she
theme is
shows
like
up and it's like da 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 da
yeah,
da da, and it's like, all right, this is badass. Some of the fight scenes are like they're not bad. They're
yeah,
they're fun and entertaining to watch. Those removed from all of the story, not bad.
yeah.
Uh, Overall, hate it. Still
Yeah,
hate it.
it's one of those things
Would
where it's
never.
like it's way more fun to watch isolated. Like, it's one of those, you kind of knew it when you were watching it in theaters, where it's way more fun to watch the cool clips in isolation removed from the shite story.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, the
definitely.
scene where they fight Doomsday is cool. Let's just pretend there's no other rest of the movie.
Let's just delete Jesse Eisenberg from this
Let's just
movie.
get rid of
Honestly, the
him.
way the way that I would have fixed the movie is I would have had it where Jesse Eisenberg's not there. It has nothing to do with Lex Luthor. It's entirely about Batman, like Batman and Superman's conflict. And like they're in the middle of fighting at the end, and Brainiac shows up.
Yeah, but I mean, you want Brainiac for an entire dedicated movie. I don't
No,
know.
no, I don't.
That's good because he's a big.
Or
Okay.
Solomon Grundy, or like the dude who runs the Green, or like Joker. You could have had Joker. Quite honestly, Jesse Eisenberg is the Joker in this.
I mean, you could still do Doomsday, just have him be where he's like
The
some
actual alien version or
yeah, and he's
something,
like
and
he's like trapped in like the Kryptonian ship, and something causes him to like be woken up, and he bursts out of the Krypton ship, and boom, there's Doomsday. You can even keep the bit where he starts off as the weird toothy Shrek thing, and he slowly turns into regular Doomsday. You can even keep that bit. Just don't do the weird
just
clone
just
bit,
just get rid of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
or have it
Like
where
that's
like
really.
it's like it.
Or again, have him be the Joker because he's just the
I mean,
Joker.
yeah.
He even at the end of the movie ends up in Arkham
I
like
mean,
the
the
Joker.
thing is though, they already had a Joker, and it was Jared Leto Joker.
No, let's just delete him.
That's their
He's
Joker.
terrible.
So before we move on to Justice League, so normally we do our
Just
haven't seen
Justin. Justice Leagues.
leagues. We normally do this in two segments. We do a thing you have seen and a thing you haven't seen. So now we're moving into the thing Jordan hasn't seen, and the theme is because he hated Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel. He did not watch the Justice Leagues, so he's now seen all. What is it? 6 hours of the Justice League in a row. He did it in a row.
Oh, it was painful, man.
So let's start with the
Uh,
Justice League. Let's start with the Joss. What did you think of the Justice League, Jordan?
I really want to emphasize though that the DC that Batman versus Superman, it pretty much killed DC for me. Like you dragged me to some of the other ones like Aquaman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as you know, I have since had a bias against DC for
Yeah, it's
years
never
that,
hadn't
that
pleased
I
your eyes
have
before.
never been able to get past
Yeah.
because it killed those movies for me.
Yep.
That being said, Justice League was probably the Joss Whedon Justice League was probably the best of all of them. Um,
You're gonna get a lot of. Oh, I'm gonna. Sorry,
I
sorry,
I
sorry,
will.
sorry, 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 sorry. This is now gonna be a short later on, John. I need you to say that real clear into the microphone for me. You think that of the DCEU, you think that the Joss Whedon Justice League is?
Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Of the DC Universe movies, the Joss Whedon one, the Justice League, the Joss Whedon Justice League, is the best of them all.
I, I hope you're prepared
Do we
for some
have
hate.
that? Do we have that on the record?
We do. That's now gonna be a short later, because we're gonna get a lot of hate comments for that. It's funny before you really get into it, and we're not gonna summarize it, but I actually liked it. I didn't hate it the first time. It's one of those, like, I get why people say this is bad. I really do. Um,
Okay.
but I like
So
parts of it.
I want to clarify and explain my position. As a part of that trilogy, because I'm considering this a trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this is a trilogy of movies, and anything that comes after this, I don't really. It's but this is the trilogy as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. And as the final part of the first two, and the final of this trilogy, no, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. It doesn't fit with what Zack Snyder set up.
That's just it, right? That's what a lot of people said, and I agree. It's too much a mishmash of two entirely separate directors' directing style. It's like you could
But
see the Joss Whedon, like, doing, like, and, like, slowly trying to
yeah,
eat up the Zack Snyder bits. You could see it
yeah,
happening in real time.
but if I'm looking at these not as a trilogy but as individual movies, this is the best of them all because these characters are fun.
Yeah, they feel like they're kind of in
Like
character a
they
little bit.
they
Yeah,
they they feel like the comic book characters that I love,
yeah.
that I grew up with, that I enjoy. Like, is Batman like an older Batman? Sure, but he still feels like
But
Batman.
also, the argument
Uh,
could be made that he's no longer in character to the version of that version of Batman that
oh,
had been set up at that point.
absolutely, absolutely. That's where I say, as a continuation of those two movies, no, it's not.
And
But
also,
as as an individual, if I'm comparing as individual movies,
yeah,
I think it's the best one because Superman is Superman.
Superman. Yeah, that's the thing. The best one of these DC movies is the last, like, 15 to 20 minutes of the Joss Whedon version, because Superman gets to be Superman. It's the
He
only
gets to
time
be
Henry
Superman. Like,
Cavill
he's
gets to
fun,
be
he's
Superman.
happy, he's enjoyable, he's colorful. He
Yeah.
doesn't look like a drab and dreary like Batman
But
version
but
of
those
Superman.
costumes were not meant to be in high color, though.
Oh,
Like, they
absolutely
looked
not. They were not.
horrendous. Like, boy, do they look horrendous. And, like, it's real fun.
Uh,
We'll talk about it when we get to the Zack
and
Snyder
and
version, but you can really tell the Joss Whedon stuff that gets in there.
um absolutely. But and there's story beats which are different, which is interesting. So, like,
Yeah,
Wonder Woman, when they want to bring Superman back to life, in the Whedon version, Wonder Woman is far more resistant.
yeah,
She's like very, very much like vehemently against it, which I thought was an interesting choice. Uh, and Steppenwolf looks very different in the two different
yeah.
versions.
Absolutely does. Yeah,
Uh, what else? It's also, this is where I said, when I was complaining to you last night, sending my voice messages as I was going through the long, long Snyder version. Um, there had to be a happy medium between the two where it was longer than the 2 hours of the Whedon version, but shorter than the 4 hour slog that is the
Oh,
Snyder
yeah,
version.
yeah. I don't disagree.
Because absolutely the Whedon version feels rushed. Like,
Yes.
it feels like literally they get to the point where they're fighting Steppenwolf at the end, and like they start kicking the crap out of him, and then they're like, "Oh, you're scared," and then the parademons just rip them apart, and then it's like, "Oh, happy ending,
Yeah,
yay, good, that's done."
yeah.
Like it does feel very rushed, like oh we're hitting close to the 2 hour mark. We got to wrap this
And that's
thing
because
up.
it
It's got to be
was, yeah.
done.
They were told to keep it 2 hours or less. Like they were told the mandate was it can't be
And
longer than 2 hours.
and it feels like that.
Yeah,
Like I feel like even if it had been like a half an hour longer, like it would have, you could have fleshed it out a little more, could have had a little bit extra in there.
yeah,
I would even argue 245 would have been like perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Uh but 4 hours moving into the next one, or
The Snyder
the
cut.
same the same one but slightly different. Uh oh
It's one of those things for me that Snyder cut. It's like, is it a?
oh
I kept asking myself like, is it a better movie or is it just because he now has like 1,000 years to like
it's not
develop
a
each
better movie.
version of the characters? Because it's like, yeah,
The thing
okay, like each like yeah, okay, Flash now has an entire backstory that sets up his involvement, and now there's way more with Cyborg, and it's like, yeah, I get why the guy was upset that got cut out.
the thing is it's not a different movie. It's the same. It follows all the same beats. It's the same general story. There's just some differences. Uh, He has the real estate of having an additional movie's worth of time to be able
Yeah.
to shove shit
Yeah,
in
so that's why
there.
I'm like, so
That
yeah, is it a better movie? I don't know. I mean, yeah, of course it's going to be a better movie by comparison because he has an additional 2 hours to tell more stories. So yeah, obviously, all the issues, the narrative issues that the Joss Whedon version has, the Zack Snyder version doesn't have because he has the time to iron those out. It's also like
yes,
he has the
and
benefit
there's
of
also the
hindsight.
fact, yeah, where he got to see the stuff that people didn't like and fix it.
Yeah,
On top of that, of course, it's gonna fit into the trilogy better because it's his style.
exactly. Yeah,
Like it's not another person who's trying to come in at the last moment and make their own version. No, it's
and it's like, is
it's
this
it's what
if it comes to the question of this isn't the version we would have seen in theaters that would have replaced Joss
you
Whedon's
know,
version.
you would never get a 4 hour movie in
No,
theaters.
it's a
No.
streaming. It's a streaming thing. So yeah, he got to put it on streaming for
But
as
to be
long as he
fair,
wanted.
he could have cut down 20 minutes of it by not having one of half a dozen musical scenes where it's just them doing a thing with
Yeah, there's so many of those. Like the one where it's like
there's so
where
many, and you
the
could have
Flash
cut out like
slowly walks out into the water as
at
the water.
least 30 minutes off of it.
Oh yeah, this movie
Uh,
you could have sliced
so
an hour off of it. It would have been a tighter movie.
so like yeah, you could have had a version of this come out
Yeah,
and work in theater. It probably would have been 3 hours.
probably would have been.
Um,
It would have been called
but
just as
like,
indulgent.
and so this is where I'm gonna since the plot is largely the same, I'm not gonna really go into it. Like there's scenes here and scenes there which I like and don't like. Uh, but the one thing that I have not an issue with per se, but it's a thing that I want to call out as a reinforcing point to me saying that he wanted to be Batman. He wanted to make Superman Batman. When Superman goes back to the ship and there's all the suits, you literally see the red and blue one, and he chooses the black one?
Yeah, it's because that's what.
Batman?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's because he wanted to use that's the suit that Superman wears post Superman Returns, right? Not,
Yeah, okay, sure, all right,
it's meant to
sure,
be a
but
callback to
no.
that. And it looks terrible. Everyone who said the black suit looked good is wrong. It looked terrible. It just looked like
I,
they took the red and blue one and like color swapped it in Photoshop. It looked awful. It didn't look good.
and then like
Again, it's
you
an
don't have
iconic
any of the
suit, but
things that
why?
you don't use the opportunity to like to go like, oh no, see, he's actually like a good and friendly guy. No, you literally have him come in and he's like standing over to Steppenwolf, beating the shit out of him, using his laser beams, cuts his arms up. He's brutal.
Yeah, well,
Like
that's
he
because
he, he
it's
absolutely fits the version of like what Zack Snyder set up, but he's a sociopathic monster who needs
yeah.
to be put down.
Well, the whole point of that is that's supposed to show
I will say though, Darkseid's cool.
he is cool. Yeah, it's you're like, oh wow, it's one of those things where like, as far as director's cuts go, it's like, oh yeah, it's different. Like I will say that it's like, um,
Kind of.
like
I mean, like it kind
normally,
of is, except Except like for example, when they do the background story of everything that happened, it's the same background story except it's Darkseid instead
Instead
of
of
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf, yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, that's because
So it's like it's not really different.
it's because the plot of the parademons and all that was originally supposed to be set up in Suicide Squad. Steppenwolf and the parademons, that's who they were supposed to fight in that original Suicide Squad movie. They would have shown up and they would have stopped him and driven him back, and then that would have led into. But they told him he couldn't do that because they were going to use the parademons and Steppenwolf in the Justice League. Which is kind of dumb because they could have set him up in Suicide Squad and then had the bad guy in this um, be Darkseid. My thing with this is there's two identical scenes of them having the exact same conversation. There's multiple scenes of them having identical conversations where it's like, "This is our evil plan. What is our evil plan? This did you do the evil plan?" It's like, oh.
Uh, I mean, I also took issue with the fact that, like, eh,
Also, sorry.
so you have Dark.
Him showing up at the end and being brutal. That's supposed to set up the idea that Superman will turn it. It's supposed to be the because Superman ultimately in the trilogy of Justice League movies would have become evil, and it would have turned into the future that you see, at the end of that movie. He would have been mind controlled by Darkseid using the anti-life equation, and that was supposed to set up the idea that Superman can actually be brutal, but he's already been brutal throughout the
He's
entire
already
movie. So it's
brutal.
like what's the difference? It's believable
Yeah,
that version
no,
of Superman would do that, which is bad. It shouldn't be.
that's exactly my point.
If you're
Like
gonna do an
if you
evil
set that
Superman,
idea up, if you set up that idea up with the version that had been in the Whedonverse, all right, then that would be a twist that that version would go bad. But
exactly.
no, no, this version is a sociopathic monster who needs to be put back in the ground where he belongs.
I respected the fact that he ended it on cliffhanger. It's like this is the cliffhanger you would have gotten. No, it's not. Badly CGI.
Uh, but sorry, I was gonna say one of the things that I take issue with is so there's the scene where where before Barry goes back and stops for Darkseid from coming. There should have been a fight scene with Darkseid, and he used the Omega beams.
Yeah,
Why do you not have like where Steppenwolf gets the three boxes and then Darkseid fights comes through, and that final fight is the same. Steppenwolf is still there, but now Darkseid's also there fighting them.
because they in order to do that, because basically because he was working with a pre-shot footage from like years ago.
I get that. It's still
That's that's
irritating.
why
And then there's scenes in there where it's like, oh yeah, so yeah, no, now these characters can show up, but they couldn't show up in any of those fight scenes because they weren't there when they were filmed.
pretty
So
much.
like Martian Manhunter shows up at the end. Oh wow, wouldn't it be useful if you had been here a while ago to help us?
Yeah,
Oh sorry, I couldn't. I wasn't in that footage.
yeah. It's the same thing with at the end. It was the bit where they're in the future, and
I hate that. I hate that scene
and you
so
can tell it's
much.
a reshoot because Ben Affleck is half the size and no longer fits in the bat suit, so it doesn't fit him properly. Very
That
funny.
scene is stupid. That
It's,
scene is so
it's
stupid.
so funny.
But final thoughts. Did I say something nice about each of those movies successfully?
Yeah, you didn't have to say anything nice about the Justice League movies. It was just the Batman ones.
All right. Well,
The
I
Man of
did.
Steel.
I
You did.
I did.
Is there anything else you wanted to say before we move on to my book report?
Yeah. I'm glad that they're rebooting the entire thing and that I won't ever have to deal with these versions again.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because
And
there's still people.
maybe the next Superman won't be a sociopathic monster who needs to be put in the ground, Justin.
It doesn't
Maybe
sound
we
like
can
it.
actually be excited to see a good Superman movie.
I saw someone say they were talking about Marvel should snatch up Henry Cavill and they're like who should he play? And someone's like he should play Hyperion. I think his name's Hyperion. He was
The evil Superman.
evil Superman. Yeah, and it was like, he should be evil Superman. Just lean all in.
Lean into it. Yeah,
Lean
lean into
all
it.
in. Okay, so that was Jordan's. Mine has already kind of started because we talked about how much I hate it, and I said a nice thing. I said one nice thing. You said more nice things about yours than I did about
Your
Batman
first
Returns.
one.
So so because I did that, I'm gonna cheat a little bit on mine, and I was tasked. I had to watch. I told Jordan I was gonna watch Lion King and say something nice about Lion King. But because it's me and because I always overdo everything, I watched every single one.
Why would you do that to
I watched
yourself?
every single live action Disney remake. With one, there was one I didn't watch, and we'll get into why as we go through this. So I have separated them. We're not going to go play by play because we got things to do. We got places to be. So I'm going to go through. I've separated them into two categories, and there may be some subcategories in there as well of the different ones. I've separated it into the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like. And they all feature ones I hadn't seen, I had seen, whatever. So we're just gonna go through them one by one. I'm gonna offer some rapid fire thoughts. We're gonna talk about it. For the ones Jordan hasn't seen, I'm gonna tell him about them. Yeah, and they're in order of the ones I like the most to the ones I like the least. Then going into the ones I just straight didn't like. So start off with my favorite one is Christopher Robin. I really like Christopher Robin. That movie was cute.
Solid.
And I know this is supposed to be about saying nice things about, but I liked it. It was cute. My one thing about it is it feels like there's remnants of a separate script in there where they explain what Winnie the Pooh's deal is. Like,
How do you mean?
well, because there's a thing where it's like he played with Winnie the Pooh as a kid, and now he's come back as an adult, and Winnie the Pooh finds him, and there's this running gag of like getting Winnie the Pooh and friends to like pretend like they're stuffed animals, and when people see them they freak out. Oh my god, it's a talking pear! But they never explain that. Necessitates the idea that like we talked about the first time we watched it. You never question how Winnie the Pooh works until you start to point out that Winnie the Pooh is irregular. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, he's not. They're all put off by the fact that Eeyore is talking. How does Eeyore talk? And it seems to sort of like start to want to imply that they're in his imagination. And that scene where he goes and he has to find them, and they eventually all disappear, and it's all rainy. That's because he's completely caught in his like adulthood, and he's completely like he's not having fun, or he's not like experiencing life because he's so focused on work. And then once he starts to rediscover his childhood, he discovers them one by one, and then the 100-acre wood becomes nice again. And it sort of implies that he's the one who empowers the 100-acre wood, but the movie never explains it. And it's one of the ones that's nice and short. It's only an hour 45. I think it's an hour 45. It's not quite 2 hours. And so yeah, so it's just like it doesn't have the real estate to answer these questions. That it posits these questions that it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be like, oh, what are they? Are they imaginary creatures? Are they stuffed animals? How did he bring them to life? Like it feels like there was a Passover of this that kind of had those explanations in it, and someone went, no, it's too much, and then cut it.
Fair. Yeah, if in terms of the cartoon, like the original stories and stuff, I just always assumed it was like his imagination.
Yeah. Well, the 100-acre wood is his backyard, basically. It's the back. It's literally it's the back 100-yard woods behind his house.
It's the 100 acres that he had behind his house.
Behind his house, yeah. And yeah, in the books and in the cartoons to a degree, because you never see them go to Christopher. No, that's not true. In the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, I think there's an episode where they go to his house.
You see his mom. Yeah, you see his mom and stuff. But I don't think Winnie, like Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and them, I don't think they really interact with the mom.
No, but they do go to his house, because there's that episode where they're pretending that they're on the train, and it keeps cutting back, and it's his room.
Yeah.
So it's like yeah.
But again, I don't think we see them.
No,
maybe
it's
we
just sort
do.
of
It's
understood
years.
that it's his, because I think the theme song is Christopher's childhood days, so it's like it's his imagination, like that's what brings them to life. But yeah, and then it's like, well, Rabbit's not a stuffed animal; he's a real rabbit. So why does he talk? It's very confusing, and it's one of those like I'm only asking these questions because the movie is positing these questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, putting it in your mind.
Yeah, and it's really cute. It's sentimental, and I'm always a fan of that's what I said. If they ever made the guy who created it would never allow it, but if they ever made a Calvin and Hobbes movie, I'm like, that's what it should kind of be like an older Calvin rediscovering Hobbes. It always gets me kind of sentimental. So moving on to the next one I liked is The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which leads me to my question about this and the previous one is it a remake? It was in the list, and it technically is a remake, or maybe even is it an adaptation? What is a remake and what is an adaptation? Because it's technically a remake of The Sorcerer's Apprentice animated short. There's references to it visually, and it says based on the blah in the credits. So is it a remake or is it just an adaptation? It's not about Mickey.
It's been so long since I've seen that one, but I would say that's an adaptation or like a reimagining or
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know. Like that to me, a remake is like 1-to-1,
Exactly. Yeah.
or at
This.
least like pretty one to
Yeah.
one enough that you can look at that and be like for example, like the live action Lion King.
Yeah.
You look at that and you're like, that's the Lion King. I
Yeah.
know that is the Lion King. That is definitely what they're going for.
Yeah.
Whereas with
Exactly.
that, with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, if you took the name off of it, you just had footage playing. No one would attribute that
Well,
to
no,
the
because
Sorcerer's
there is a
Apprentice.
scene. There is a scene that's a specific reference. But to be fair, the original with Mickey is an adaptation, right? That's not an original Disney idea. Sorcerer's Apprentice is an old German story. It's an old German proverb, and it's pretty much exactly what the thing is. It's the sorcerer tells him not to use magic to take any shortcuts, and
Right.
it's basically like a German Aesop fable, and then he leaves, and then yeah, he uses magic to, and he has the sorcerer, the guy has to. So that scene with the brooms and it even is coded to the music, like da 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 da. So
Right.
like if
But
I
but
played
but
that scene for you, and at the end you see Mickey's sorcerer's hat. So if I played those scenes for you in isolation, you would get theoretically that it's related to that.
I still wouldn't call it a remake. I would
No,
call it an homage
that's or an adaptation. I could that's why I said
or an
that's why
adaptation.
I said the
Like
question is
it's
going to come
not
up here.
like if they had where it was like a again, I hesitate to use the word live action, but like Lion King style live action
Yeah,
mouse who wasn't Mickey but was doing the scene, and it was like an anthropomorphic mouse,
exactly,
then okay, then maybe that's a remake,
exactly. And
right?
that's
Like
like
then maybe I could see that. But
yeah, that's where it became like the question of, and that's gonna be kind of a theme of recreation versus adaptation versus remake. You know, like
straight
that
remake.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna come up a lot. So yeah, I put that one on just because Nicolas Cage. That one's a real like 2008 like that era of movie making, kind of movie. And then after that, surprisingly, this one surprised me how much I like it. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a sucker for talking animals, but I really liked The Lady and the Tramp. I really liked it. It was really cute, and it was quite funny. I was surprised by how much I liked it. And I think it's maybe because I don't have an attachment to the original Lady and the Tramp, so any changes. But that this is where it's like that is that it's a remake, yes, but it's more of an adaptation. Where yeah, it takes the story and it makes it longer, but in a way that's kind of interesting, and it definitely like fleshes out the actual romance between the lady and the tramp, and like it both modernizes it in a way that like okay, I'm actually really into this, and like I say, it's really cute, and the animals because they're live action cats and dogs, they're really cute and adorable, and I like it when like an anthropomorphized animal does like regular dog stuff. Like, oh no, she's still a dog, and she's still got the base intelligence of a dog, and she still reacts to stuff as though she were a dog. And I don't know, it made it more cute and endearing. And yeah, like I say, it's a really cute movie. I was everyone it was one of those everyone kept saying how not very good it was, and I was watching it. I'm like, a constant thing throughout this is you're gonna hear me say is the pacing in these movies is torrid. And this one was no exception. I liked it, but like at an hour and 35 or hour and 5, I was like, how is this still going for 40 more minutes? Like the phrase like how is this like all of these movies are too long. First of all, I'm gonna get that out of the way. They're all like 15 minutes, 20 minutes too long because they've taken a movie that was an hour and a half and stretched it out to 2 hours, and some of them are worse than others. So yeah, I really like Lady in the Tramp. Fully recommend. That's one you haven't seen. I would fully recommend it.
No, I
Um,
haven't watched that one.
then next is Aladdin. That one is funny because I'm gonna say positive things about another one later on that are gonna be similar to the ones I say here, where it's like I like this movie when it's doing stuff that's different, and that's where you're like, oh, when you have a character who's so iconic, intrinsically tied to a certain actor, that's where I'm like, you do it different. I like Will Smith's Genie, when he's being different, when he's injecting his own sense of humor, like when he's doing Hitch, but he's the genie in Aladdin. Like that stuff is
Right.
fun. When he's trying to be Robin Williams, oh, not so fun. And that's the thing with this. Like, I like the idea of Jafar as like an anti-Aladdin, um, an evil version of Aladdin. Oh, this is what Aladdin would do. And like when it's like, oh, um, Jafar's got this beef with this neighboring country that they never explain why. That the wife was from, who the wife is dead. It's all this like new stuff that they've introduced. That's like, oh, this is interesting. I would like you to explore this more. Oh, you're just doing scenes from the original movie now. Great. Okay. And that it's the scenes from the original movie, like they're interesting, like they're dynamic and they're visually interesting. But it's just like I just these could be more. Like this is where it's like this is just a recreation. Like when this gets to be an adaptation and it's interesting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, I will say in the Aladdin movie, I do like the fact that he like a lot more than in the original. He's like, you got to be very specific with your wording. You want me to make you a prince?
Yeah,
I just make you a prince.
that was the thing I liked about yeah. Like, you know what my pal said? Like
You all know what my pal said.
that's what I liked about I like that about going back to last week the DuckTales version of the genie where it was like I like you, I'm your friend. The magic is tricky. Be specific. Don't
Be careful about what you
yeah, be
say.
careful
Yeah.
about what you say. There's a lot of gray area there, and I liked it. And yeah, I do enjoy. I like how it does. To be fair, with these movies, it does kind of get tedious eventually. But I do like the like, oh, they don't just immediately fall in love, and like they actually have to work at the relationship and stuff like that. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Aladdin. I quite liked Aladdin. So moving on to the next one that I
Y'all like
liked.
my
Y'all
palace?
like my palace?
Where?
Oh, Cinderella. I really like Cinderella. I was surprised by how much I like Cinderella. There's a lot of really, really funny, like I laughed out loud jokes that were like, oh wow, this is funny. Um, but it's like
Did I see that one?
I don't know if you did. It actually surprisingly comes out later than I was expecting. Like Alice in Wonderland came out before it. I swear to God, it was like 2016, 2017. I thought it was like 2015. It's a lot newer than I thought it was. But I mean, it's a pretty basic bitch of a. There's a lot of these where it's like when they become basic bitch, it's just the original movie. I've seen 100 adaptations of Cinderella. Like I've seen this 1,000 times. It's not really doing anything different. Kind of movies. So it was like I liked it, but there was one joke. There's a couple jokes that were really funny where when the fairy godmother comes up and shows up and it's the scene where she's changing all the animals into things and the pumpkin into things or whatever.
Bibbidi bobbidi
Yeah,
boo.
and she's like, okay, I need a coachman, and she turns the lizard into a coachman, and then she's like, oh, I need a driver, and she goes, poof, and she turns this swan into a driver, and the swan's just there looking shocked. He's like, I don't know how to drive. I'm a swan, and I was like, just the way like I don't know how to drive. I'm a swan. It's just
I'm a swan.
it was like one of those I nearly spit out my drink laughs. Like it was I laughed so hard. Like this is funny. Like it's cute. It's fun. It's like it's a basic adaptation. It's not doing anything different, but it's not just because Cinderella is such a well-worn story. You can do the same, but how like without like taking huge swings. And it's like I think that one wasn't 2 hours. I think it was only an hour and 45. It was nice and short. And I was like, oh yeah, this is good. This is cute. I enjoyed this. I quite liked it. I was like, in other words, I was like, I don't like Cinderella, but like I get what people say when they say, oh, this is one of the good ones. And then moving right along. Oh shit, sorry. I think I skipped ahead. Hold on, Aladdin. Oh shit, I skipped ahead. That's my bad. Before Cinderella, Maleficent. I really enjoyed Maleficent. That's one of those ones where it's like there's a couple of these where it's we take a bad guy and we give him a tragic backstory. But it's like you know what? It was kind of dull at points, and it's another one that's too long. But like I enjoy when it's trying to do something different. It's like oh. Like we're doing the story, but it's not exactly like this is more of an adaptation.
We're flipping it on its head,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I would say this is not a remake. This is just a straight adaptation, and I quite like Angelina Jolie. My only thing with it is when they tried to have her do the stuff from the movies. It's just like it kind of just like oh she's evil now, and the movie just kind of she has her wings taken, and they're like oh this is a metaphor for sexual assault, and then all of a sudden she's evil now, but she's not quite, because they want to be like she's evil with a heart of gold. So it's like they want her to say and do the stuff from Sleeping Beauty, and it just doesn't work. But like I say, I commend it. That's why it's sort of towards the bottom of this. I commend it for taking chances and for doing something that's
For trying.
for trying, yeah. And then after that is 101 Dalmatians, which I quite liked. I'm not a huge 101 Dalmatians fan, which you're going to discover as we go on. But that was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, it's just a charming little easy adaptation. And Glenn Close, who's playing Cruella de Vil, she fucking absolutely just steals the show in that movie. And it was good. It was one of those like it's okay. It's like this is before they.
Is that the one from the 90s?
Yeah, no.
Like the old one.
The old ones, yeah. I don't think it's from the 90s. I think it's a bit. No, actually, I think you're right. I think it is 90s. I didn't look up the year. I think 102 Dalmatians is 2000. So I think it's 98 or 97. Yeah, it is the one from the 90s. Yeah. I was like, it was in the list.
Yeah.
As far as like I watched them all, and this is before they get really like lazy and egregious, and it's like, But you will see when we get into the ones I didn't like when I talk about 102 Dalmatians. Spoiler alert. Where it's like, oh yeah, you get the obligatory. The first one made a lot of money. We need to make a sequel. And then yeah, Cinderella. Oh yeah, and then Peter Pan and Wendy. I also quite liked. I thought it's really cool because that's the newest one that came out last year. And it seems from the beginning, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a very basic by the numbers. Because usually when it comes to Peter Pan, I'm sure you've noticed this, it's old enough that they're always like, oh, it's Peter Pan, but there's another thing. So it's like, Hook, it's Peter Pan, but he's an adult now. So they're always like, oh, there's something, there's that one with the magic flying pirate ship where it's like, it's Peter Pan, but it's an origin story. This one is like, oh no, it's just regular Peter Pan. Okay, interesting.
So would you say it's always Peter Pan and a hook?
It's funny. You're good. It's good. It's funny. And this one, it really seemed like it. And then they eventually, Wendy starts asking questions. She's basically like, why? And it kind of seems like it's going to go in a direction that's interesting. Like, oh, maybe there's something more to this, because he's like, oh, she's like, why do you fight Hook? And he's like, because I do, because I'm Peter Pan. Peter Pan always wins. Peter Pan always beats Captain Hook. That's how it works. There's like, oh, is this going to be like a commentary on the story of Peter Pan itself? Is there going to be like, is he not the original Peter Pan? Is there going to be some sort of big twist? And there isn't a big twist, but the twist in this one, spoilers for if you haven't seen this movie, but the big twist of this one is that Peter Pan, or that Captain Hook, is the original Lost Boy. He's the first one, and him and Peter were friends.
Huh.
And he missed his mother, and so he left to go find her, and he got lost, and the pirates found him and eventually made him their captain. He grew up, went back to Neverland, and now Peter doesn't like him because he's an adult and he grew up wrong. And that's where their conflict comes from.
That's kind of interesting.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of it. It's very surface level, but I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea that I wish they had that's why it's sort of more towards the bottom of my like, because it was like, I like that. That's clever, and that's an interesting idea. But and then they're like, it sort of seems to hint at they're like, oh, we don't talk about, like, oh, he wasn't always Captain Hook. Oh, we don't talk about that. And like, he's like, oh, you don't like Peter when he's mad. And it seems like they're sort of setting up for like, oh, Peter Pan might be the bad guy in this. And they don't do that. It eventually develops into a traditional Peter Pan story. And then at the end of it, that when they beat him and Hook kind of reconcile. And it sort of turns out like they eventually go back to London. They come back, whatever. And it's like, oh, Captain Hook and Peter Pan still need to do their thing, but they don't want to ever actually beat each other because that's what drives them. And so that's what it's a rivalry now. They don't hate each other, because there's a really dark and upsetting moment where like they're fighting, and Captain Hook like turns around and goes and slashes Peter Pan across the chest, and Peter Pan just starts bleeding from his chest and goes flying back, and it looks like he's dead. And for like the next 10 minutes of the movie, you think Peter Pan is dead. And Peter Pan's like, that's not supposed to happen. And you're like, yeah, that's not supposed to happen. And you think it's going to go somewhere kind of dark, and then it obviously doesn't. And I'm like, oh, if this had just gone like a hair darker, this would have been a little bit more interesting and done something a bit more ambitious. And then the last one I liked, before we get to the ones I didn't like, because I know that's what you're waiting for. You want to?
Yes, you're not suffering nearly enough.
The last one was Beauty and the Beast. And I don't have much to say about that other than, yeah, it exists to answer questions you never asked. Emma Watson can't sing to save her life, and it's too long. It's one of those ones where it's like, oh my god, it just keeps going. It somehow simultaneously is like, it's funny you talked about pacing. The pacing in these movies are atrocious, where like it'll rapid fire through the plots of the original movie, and then like so just so they can spend an additional 20 to 30 minutes doing just unnecessary shit. And it's like, yeah, it's okay. I like Beauty and the Beast, so it's like I'm willing to put up with it because of that. And so Jordan,
and Emma Watson.
and
I like
yeah,
her too.
no, not in this movie. She's not good in this movie.
I
And that's it.
just that was more a general
So,
statement.
okay, I think I watched 12, 13 movies in total in this past week. That's it. Those are the only ones I didn't like. I hated the rest. So let's get, okay, I didn't hate. This is going to go in descending order of ones I didn't completely hate to the ones um,
Loathe entirely.
yeah. And the one I hated the most is probably going to surprise you because I know what you're expecting. So to start off with the ones I didn't like, I fucking hated Pinocchio. Like it was bad. It was bad. It was just like, it was again too long. It rapid fires through the the plots of the movie, and it's just not interesting. It's just a nothing. There's just nothing. It's nothing. And like it exists in this irritating and confusing world where everyone is off put by the fact that Pinocchio is a talking puppet. They really draw attention to the fact that he's a talking puppet. Like, and this version of Pinocchio isn't like as naive as the original Disney one. Like, he has good instincts. Like, he's off to go to school, and he gets sidetracked by the fox and the cat, who are anthropomorphic and walk around talking like people. Like, there's talking animals in this universe, and nobody questions it, but yet there's a talking puppet, and everyone takes issue with it. It's really weird. I hate universes like that, where it's like, oh, so that's where your line for the ridiculous is. All right. And
Doesn't Geppetto also have like a pet cat?
yeah,
And so it's like, wait, there's a talking anthropomorphic cat, but there's also like a pet cat. And like,
right.
why is one talking,
And,
one
and,
isn't?
and so initially, Pinocchio starts to go with them, and he sings a hi diddly dee. Also, there's all of these feature
What
songs.
actors like
They
to
do
be?
the original songs, and then they do the original songs badly, and then they do news. Oh my god, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks tries to sing in this movie, and it's horrendous. It's right up there with Seth Rogen and Lion King, which we're obviously going to get to. Don't you worry. It's like make your ears bleed, like awful. Like it was like, oh my god, you're a good actor, Tom Hanks. Why are you doing this to me? You seem like a nice guy. This is awful. It was terrible. And so yeah, so there's new songs that are all bad, and then the old songs are not very good either. And yeah, so Pinocchio, he like the fox, and they go, oh, come off to join the Stromboli Circus or whatever, and sing the "I Have No Strings on Me" song. And he's like, no, I don't think I'm gonna. I want to go to school. And so he tries to go to school, and then the teacher's like, no puppets allowed, and kicks him out of school. So then later on in the movie, when Jiminy Cricket tries to give him shit for going off to Stromboli's, he's like, I tried to go to school. Like, what do you want from me? Like every time he gets into a scrape, he's just like, yeah, no. And then like when he goes off to Pleasure Island, he like the guy's like, you should come to Pleasure Island, and it's like a creepy, scary van with a bunch of creepy, scary children, and Pinocchio's like, no, I don't want to. And he sings a really he sings a song that's really compelling, and he's like, come on, you know you want to, and he's like, all right, I guess. And then he goes with them to Pleasure Island and nearly gets turned into a donkey. And yeah, it's just a boring, not very exceptionally. It doesn't do it. It just. It's in a genre of these that I call doing the original movie but boring, where he's like longer,
Original but not as good.
yeah, but longer and more boring. Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Okay, so next one is Cruella de Vil. Now this one almost went on my I like it list, but I couldn't. It couldn't hold my attention. It's like I get what it's going for. It's trying to do like, oh, it's another one of those Cruella has a sad tragic backstory kind of movies. But it's like they tried to do the thing. And my favorite version of Cruella de Vil is from Once Upon a Time, where they try to be like, oh, she has a sad, tragic backstory. But it turns out at the end that, no, she's actually the bad guy and she's fucking crazy. and it's a big twist. I love that twist. It's so good. It's like, yeah, it subverts the idea of, yeah, you think these, because up until that point on Once Upon a Time, all of the guys who you thought were bad guys all had sad backstories. It's like, oh no, she's just a bad guy. And so this one is like, the twist is that the big bad guy of the movie is who Cruella ends up killing, I think, at the end of it. It turns out she acts just like Cruella DeVille, and she's like a proto Cruella DeVille. And Cruella is basically her backstory. She's a thief, and when she was a kid, she met, you know, the two thieves who help her steal the puppies in the cartoon.
Yeah.
She meets them as kids, and they become like a gang of thieves. And her name is actually Estella, and when she's a kid, she has her hair is the black and white naturally, and her mom gets killed by Dalmatians, which is why she hates Dalmatians. And
Oddly specific,
yeah,
but okay.
basically Cruella is like a terror. Basically, she gets the nickname Cruella. And the mom's like, you need to stop being like Cruella, and be more like regular Stella. And so that's the whole thing of the movie. Is like Cruella is like a separate almost personality almost. And the mom gets killed, and Cruella like runs away because she gets killed because Cruella keeps getting kicked out of schools, and so the mom goes to this mysterious person to get money or whatever to take care of them. And while it happens, she sneaks in and sees the fashion, whatever, and that's why she decides she wants to become a fashion designer. And the mom gets killed by the Dalmatians, and then Cruella meets the two thieves and dyes her hair purple and becomes Estella. And she ends up working for this woman who's proto Cruella. She acts like Cruella, and that's where Cruella gets the idea to be like basically become Cruella. And she develops the Cruella as like a secret identity or whatever, and she shows up at like fashion shows and fucks with this chick or whatever. Anyway, I had to tell you all that to tell you the twist, because you're never gonna watch this movie. Is that this chick is actually Cruella's mom, and this chick is crazy, and she's like evil, and she basically turns out that she murdered the mom, and she's like ruthless and willing to murder, and it turns out that that Cruella is her kid, and that's why Cruella is rich. Cruella beats her in the end and takes all of her money, and she becomes Cruella, and she kills Estella. Like fakes her own death and becomes Cruella permanently and leaves all the money to herself. And it was just like, it just wasn't doing it for me. It's like, I see what it's doing, and I don't think this is a bad movie. That's why I didn't call this category the bad ones. It just didn't do anything for me. It's truly, I just didn't like it. And she was like, oh, this isn't. I saw that they were making the second one, and I was like, why?
That was one of those ones where it was like, I was tempted to watch it because I like Emma Stone, but I just never could bring myself to, because it was like, eh.
And it's a thing where it's like you're watching it. The big thing for me is like a thing they constantly remind you of in the 101 Dalmatians remake is how she wants to kill puppies. Like they say it aloud because it's such a horrific thing. Like how could she wants to kill puppies. Like that's like
and make them into a coat.
And make them into a coat, yeah. But like she just wants to kill puppies. Like that's like the meanest thing, most awful thing. The other than wanting to kill babies, which is kind of a thing with that Peter Pan movie.
I mean,
like, he wants to kill kids.
One would argue she wants to kill puppies, dogs.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, so we're supposed to feel
bad for, and then not only kill them, but skin them.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, at least the Maleficent movie goes through the effort of being like, oh, she's not the character you know. This one is like, oh no, she's very much the character you know. They constantly make jokes about how, oh, I would never kill dogs, or like she shows up in a Dalmatian coat, and the girl thinks that because one part of it is she kidnaps this woman's dogs who are both Dalmatians, and she lets her think that she's killed them and skinned them into coats, and you find out that she didn't actually do it. But it's just like, it's just all like, wink, she's gonna do the thing, wink, and it's like, yeah, kill puppies, or try to kill puppies anyway. We're gonna lump in, so the next ones I have are the Alice in Wonderland movies. I was gonna do them separately, but they're dull. They're so dull, and they're long, and it's like trying to take, oh yeah, I forgot Tim Burton also made those at least have his like identity to them. It's like, oh yeah, these are weird and gothic, and like it just kind of takes them and turns the Alice in Wonderland into like a generic a generic fantasy Narnia knockoff that's just boring. It was boring. And the second one, it was like, oh, we're trying to do this story with like the Hatter, and it just was like a nothing of a movie. It's like it doesn't have anything interesting to say. It's so, again, generic. There's just nothing. It's nothing of a movie.
I mean, you know how that you could tell that it was a Tim Burton movie is it had Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter in
Yep,
it.
yep.
You know, his thruple.
It's trouble. Well, not just them. I mean, to be fair, he's got a staple of guys who show up in his movies. Michael Keaton,
No,
De
but
Niro.
those are the two big
Those are
ones.
the ones that they have sex together. I mean, at least we assume they have sex together.
Yeah, they're a
Occasionally,
thruple.
they're a throuple. Just nothing.
I'm sorry. Allegedly a thruple.
Allegedly a throuple, but yeah, it just didn't do anything for me. They were just like, I was like, ugh. But yeah, Alice in Wonderland was way older than I remember. I remember I worked at the theater when that came out, but it was way older. It was like 2010. Like way older.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And then like
Wow.
the second one came out not too far afterwards, and it was like, yeah, I was like, oh, I gotta watch two Alice in Wonderlands before I get to watch Aladdin. Ugh. And then I got um the sequels. So we got Maleficent 2 and 102 Dalmatians. Maleficent 2, it just once you do, I mean, I will say, I think I mentioned the plot of it very briefly, but it's basically Meet the Parents, but with
Yeah, you've
magic.
said that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just generic, boring fantasy fare at that point. It also does that thing that these modern Disney movies do, where it's like, oh, the prince and the princess don't immediately get married, so it's like it takes place 5 years later, and her and Prince Philip have been dating for 5 years, and now they're finally ready to get married. And like in the first one,
Justin, it's medieval. I think you mean courting.
yeah, they were
They were
courting
courting each
courting for
other.
5 years. It's funny, there's a moment in the first one where the fairies are like, you need to kiss her for true love and all that, and he's like, I just met her, that would be weird. But yeah, otherwise it's just like one of those, like, if characters stopped and talked to each other for like 2 minutes kind of movies. um
Right.
any and all of the problems in it would be solved pretty immediately. And then 102 Dalmatians, I don't have a ton to say about that beyond the fact that it wasn't very good. It's a real, like, it, it's got a real 2000s family children's movie vibe to it, with like the quirky music constantly, and like everyone's a goofball, and like it exists in this world where the animals are anthropomorphic enough that they're self-aware and intelligent. So like one of the dogs doesn't have any spots, and she's super self-conscious about it. And so she keeps getting in trouble because she's self-conscious about the fact that she doesn't have any spots. And like animals are doing things where it's like, oh yeah, they're self-aware, but they're not so self-aware that they talk, but they're self-aware enough that they know what they're doing. And there's a parrot who's hyper intelligent. It's very weird. And it just was like, yeah, it has no real connection to the first one, apart from the fact that it's basically just the first one again. Like Cruella's there, and that's kind of it. It's like, I didn't even realize it's not even the original family from the original family. Cruella and one other character are the only characters that come back. It's like the connection is like loose and tenuous at best. It's the there's now a second separate 102 Dalmatians now. It's not the same 101 Dalmatians from the first one. It's now separate ones. And yeah, it's the connection is
Interesting.
it's one of the puppies from the first one. He's an adult dog now, and now he is
Has had puppies.
well, yeah, he is with a, yeah, he has had puppies, yeah. And the main human is like the probation officer of Cruella de Vil, so that's how she knows who Cruella de Vil is, and that's the connection.
Got it.
Yeah, it's
Got it.
otherwise very very loosely connected. So, okay, moving right along to the Little Mermaid.
Moving right along.
So we're in the bottom four here, Jordan. These are the bad ones. These are the bad ones. These are the ugh. And no, that's not fair. Little Mermaid is not is bad. It's bad, and it's not bad. Okay, we're gonna say this is where we're gonna start saying positive things about bad things, because Halle Bailey, the girl who plays Ariel,
Yeah.
she's
Halle-
quite good.
yeah.
She's quite good. She's a great Ariel. She has
Halle-
that kind of
Isn't
innocent
it
sort of
isn't it Halle
spirit.
Berry?
No, that's what I thought. No, it's Halle Bailey.
Oh.
Halle Berry is the woman who played Storm in the X-Men movies.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I for whatever reason, every time I heard the
I know.
marketing, I
I
thought it
always
was
thought it was.
Halle Berry.
I thought it was Haley Berry as well. No, it's Haley Bailey. But it sounds similar. That's probably that's why. And also,
Okay,
she's
fair
really
enough.
good. And Melissa McCartney, Melissa McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Yeah, she fucking slays as Ursula. She is phenomenal. She's so good, and like any of these movies, when they do stuff that's different, and it's not just them. This is very much one of those. It's the original movie, but it's longer and done worse. But when they're doing stuff that's interesting, that's not agonizing, it's good. Like it's interesting. Like granted, it does turn her into Scar a little bit, but they've added the detail now where she is Triton's sister and she was banished. But of course, because they got to do this stuff from the original movie, they don't explain why or for what reason. Did she always look like an octopus lady? Was she a mermaid before? Like they don't really go into that, and she kind of essentially becomes Scar. But still, at least there's some sort of form of a connection. And she's great. Her version of Poor Unfortunate Souls is super fun, and she's matching the original energy. She's not doing anything wildly different, and it
Um,
works so well.
Interesting that you mentioned the connection thing and the being a sister thing. I think not necessarily that idea itself, but some form of that comes from one of the sequels or prequels or whatever, where I think it's the one where Ariel is a kid and her mom is still around or whatever. And I don't. I've only seen clips of it because it was on TikTok, where you see Ursula's voice is coming from like a mermaid body, and she looks like Ursula, but she's a mermaid.
Huh.
And she gets I believe it was like she gets banished because she tries to take over, basically, and Titan turns her into the Ursula we know.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I,
Um,
I I might be a little bit off about that, but I just something about that sticks out in my
yeah, it's
memory.
something like it's implied in this that has something to do with her like being too familiar with humans, or I don't know. It's super unexplained. But I mean, yeah, I'd say she's great. They've given more character. It's a it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and my god, is it agonizingly long. But um, they've added some character details. They've given the prince an actual character, where it's like now he's adopted. This takes place in the Caribbean, and so the queen instead of the queen being dead, it's now the king is dead, and the queen is like basically he's like a mirror to Ariel. So Ariel is obsessed with land. He's obsessed with the ocean. Um, Ariel has a dad who's like, you can't trust the surface. She's got a mom who's like, or he's got a mom, sorry, that's like, we can't trust the sea creatures because in this world they know that mermaids and stuff exist. And Ariel's like singing, her voice is referred to as her mermaid, her mermaid call. And so they've sort of melded in the idea of like sirens and stuff. And so
Siren.
yeah, the surface
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
mistrusting of the mermaids as a result of it. But again, they never do anything with it because they have to do really absurdly boring iterations of the songs from the of some of the songs from the original movie. Because I realize this every time I talk about the Little Mermaid, I don't remember what happens after she gets turned into a human, apart from the Kiss the Girl song. I literally I don't I is there another song in there other than Kiss the Girl?
Wow.
Yeah, I
I
don't
just know that
remember.
there's kiss the girl and then they get
Movie
married and it's
ends.
happily ever after.
Movie ends. Yeah, that's all I remember. So it's kind of like I don't know what happens when she becomes human. I know
And
that Ursula
and
shows up
I
eventually.
and I know there's like a fight scene where they're on the boat and
Yeah,
Eric throws the
yeah, big
trident
Ursula.
and it goes through and she's like, "Go!" And yeah, she's big or
Yeah,
whatever and
big
then she
Ursula.
dies.
Yeah, yeah. Which they, by the way, they do big Ursula, and it's fucking terrible. But yeah, they do all that. They do Under the Sea, and it's just Sebastian singing it, and then Ariel joins in, and it becomes like a duet. And so he sings the lyrics, and there's all that bit at the end where it's like the da, 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 and you know where he describes all the different fish. And in the original animated version, you see all of them. Well, in this version, you don't, and those lyrics now don't make any sense. They do they do kiss the girl, but it's just Sebastian Flounder and Scuttle singing it. None of the other animals are there, so it doesn't have any of the ambiance from the original one. It's
Yeah,
super
just
weird.
because these other animals would be expensive.
I mean, it's terrible. It's so half-assed, and it's like it's awful. There's no imagination to the ship from the original, and it's like, yeah, there's stuff in there. It's kind of like it reminded me of Aladdin, where it's like, yeah, if they had taken a chance and actually done this as an adaptation and actually explored that stuff, this might be interesting. But as it is, it's bland as hell. There's just nothing like, and it's not bland and boring and bad because of woke or
So
whatever. It's just boring and bland because nobody wanted to put any effort into this.
so wait, what you're saying is this movie that looks like a shameless cash grab is
It's
definitely a shameless cash grab?
yeah. And the thing
Shocking.
is like as I've watched these, it's like not all of them are that, and not all of them are boring, especially the newer ones. Like, yeah, take chances. If you're gonna do it, take a swing, do something different with it, and actually explore it. Don't just copy and paste the original movie, but badly, which this doesn't do completely. We're gonna get to the ones that do. Um, but it's just an awful, no good movie. It's just not no good. It's just
Don't
it just was
don't shell out
nothing.
a boring, bland, uninteresting movie for the poor unfortunate souls to watch.
Yeah, it's just yeah, and it was like I didn't hate it, I just didn't love it. Um, so
Poor
then
unfortunate
oh yeah, the next
souls.
one. Speaking of dull and uninspired, Mulan. Oh my God, Mulan was bad. Like that was bad. It was like it's basically if they took Mulan. Okay, okay. No, I got a better way to present this. Joe, let me ask you a question. Okay, have you ever watched Mulan and said to yourself, "I would love this, but I would prefer it if they zapped all the charm, humor, and color out of it and just made it a bland, generic action movie."
Well, Justin, it's interesting that you asked me that question because the answer to your question is there's a live action Mulan movie.
Did you not know that?
No,
No, it's
no, I didn't.
bad. It's yeah, it's it's like it's how to put this. It's made in a
Does so
factory.
so so is there like a Mushu?
No, there's no
Like,
Mushu. There's no Mushu. There's no
is there
Mushu.
is
There's
there
no cricket.
catchy is there catchy songs that make you want to be a man?
No, and insultingly so. Insultingly so because they do parts from they do all the parts from the original movie. So they've got the she goes to the matchmaker. She joins the army. Um, she's a yeah, all of it. The all of the scenes from the movie they do, but without any of the emotion or any of the charm. They do I'll make a man out of you, but it's not set to music. It's just a generic montage, and then they have the audacity to put the songs into the score. So they're doing the scene from the original movie, but but it's just the music is in the background and there's no energy. There's nothing. It's made to be a generic Chinese Hong Kong action movie. Whereas like this movie has been created and crafted in a lab to appeal to China, which makes it hilarious that it never got there. Because yeah, this movie is there's like long, excruciatingly long action sequences that go on for an eternity. Um, that could be put in China. Like that's what they're there for. And then like there's some action sequences that yeah they look kind of cool, um, but there's nothing. There's none of the charm that made people like this movie is there. Like none of the characters have anything, and um they've also made her hyper competent like right from the beginning. The opening scene is she falls off a roof and does a backflip and grabs onto it, so it makes the sequence of her training feel completely redundant. um
She was just always a
she was just always
badass.
and the whole thing is, oh, she has China, and they got rid of there's no Han. There's now another bad guy. um Two bad guys basically. There's a random leader of another army who aren't the Huns. There's some other army, and there's an evil witch character who is supposed to be like evil Mulan. She's like, oh, you should be like me, and Mulan's like, I'll never be like you. I'm a good guy, and it's really kind of weird because there's this whole message of like, you should follow the empire. The emperor is the monarchy is good, and it's like, yeah, like it's easy. Oh, he's the bad guy, but it's kind of the movie wants to forget that he's the bad guy because the king murdered his dad, like, and to send a message. And this isn't about like saving good people. It's about crushing an uprising. It's like, okay,
You need to destroy the rebellion.
yeah. It's like, oh, we're on the side of the
So
colonizers. Sure, okay,
we agree with the Emperor from Star Wars.
yeah,
He was the good guy all
pretty
along.
much, yeah, yeah. And it's just, yeah, it was just, it really was. Like, everyone's like, oh, what if we take Mulan and made it bad? It was like, yeah, and it doesn't do anything interesting. It doesn't say, oh, what if Mulan was different? It doesn't try to take another swing at it or do something interesting. Or it's just Mulan but longer and more boring, like exceptionally boring. Um,
Execute Order
um
66.
yeah. So that with that, we move into the one. Oh yeah, okay. One nice thing about Mulan is the action sequences look cool, I guess. Okay, Lion King. Oh yeah,
That felt a little disingenuous. I'm not sure that I believed that.
Lion King. Lion King. To be honest with you, I couldn't decide whether the worst one was Lion King or Dumbo. Oh shit! I just realized I forgot. I completely forgot, and that maybe shows. I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention the Jungle Book, which I tried to watch. To be fair, I don't think that one's bad. I just don't like it, and I just don't like the Jungle Book. I've never liked the Jungle Book.
To
I
be
don't
fair, the
like.
Jungle Book story is kind of boring.
I don't like the animated Jungle Book, so there's no way I was gonna like the live action Jungle Book. I fell asleep watching it. I'd already seen it. I just remember that I don't like it very much. And in full disclosure, I didn't I did leave out one live action remake, which was there's a 1994 version of Jungle Book. I couldn't do more than one version of the Jungle Book, so I didn't watch it. Okay, there we go. We did Jungle Book. I didn't like Jungle Book. The special effects are kind
I
of
did two
impressive.
versions of Justice League. You could have done two versions of Jungle
I
Book.
watched 14 movies. You can get all the way off my back. Um, um, I just don't like Jungle Book. And yeah, the CGI, it's impressive. He's one live action kid in a entirely CGI environment. That's impressive. It's made by John Favreau. He did a halfway decent job. Let's talk about how he fucked up Lion King. Because John Favreau did Lion King, by the way. I don't know if you know that. No, you didn't know
I
that?
hate that movie.
Yeah, it's an awful fucking movie. Oh my god, it was so
I,
bad. That's the
I
one. That's
choose
the
to
one that
forget that
killed.
movie's
That's the
existence.
one. That's my Batman versus Superman in this. That's the one that started this whole thing. That's the one that killed these Disney live action remake movies for me. I never watched another one after I saw that one because I just got mad the whole time because it's lazy. It's just it's just a longer, more boring version of the original. Like they brought back James Earl Jones and he has like he doesn't want to be there. He's clearly only there for the paycheck. Like he's so bored. He's saying all of the
Sounds
lines.
dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dead inside.
He's saying the lines from the original movie with like a fraction of the enthusiasm. It just sounds like I could just hear him counting his dollar bills. Like it just sounds like he's there for the paycheck. Like the animation's like, yeah, all right, cool. This is what a photorealistic version of this looks like, but it saps all of the charm out of it. All of
I
the
mean,
expressiveness.
quite frankly, I could have, if you were to tell me that the James Earl voice in that movie was like an AI that
I
was
would believe it.
programmed to be that voice, I could believe
I
it.
could believe it. Like it was awful, and it was like, yeah, it's like when this movie is doing this stuff. Oh, the worst is when Seth Rogen does the stuff from the original movie. When he does the stuff from the original movie, but he's taking jabs at it and he's being sarcastic about it. Or when they're trying to like lampshade jokes from like when they Akuna Matata. Oh my god, Akuna Matata. Akuna Matata was agonizing. It hurts my ears. Like it literally does. It makes me I go, "Ow, please stop. Please stop." Like, yeah, I didn't like Beauty I don't much care for the Little Mermaid one or the Beauty and the Beast one when it's being unoriginal or the Aladdin. But at least the songs are well sung in that movie. The songs in this, they're awful. They're worse versions of the original. It's like it's terrible. Like Aladdin, at least Alan Menken came back and he like punched up the orchestration so the music at least like One Jump has like a neat little guitar in there that's a little extra that makes it sound a
Yeah.
bit bigger. Like they're just doing shitty versions of the original movie. And it's like, yeah, it's like a diet cola. I think I called it the Diet Coke of Lion King, where it's like it's Lion King, or like to borrow from Deadpool, it's the Nickelback of Lion King.
No,
It's Lion King,
not even
but it's
Diet Coke.
shitty.
Not even Diet Coke. It's the cola, the Western Family
Yeah,
Cola
like the
version.
grocery store brand, whatever grocery store brand version you have in your area, cola version of the Lion King. It's the it's cola, but it's shit. Like it's like it's Lion King,
Yeah.
but it's shit. It's just it's like yeah, they put it's so lazy. It just exists to be played in like electronic stores on TV to be like, look how good this looks in HD on your HD 4K television. Like it's a special effects demonstration of how real we can make animals look now without any effort, anything put into the story. And like, and here's what I will say. Here's the one. Okay, my one nice thing about this. I'm looking forward to the prequel they're making. I'm interested in seeing that because at least it's different and they're not just gonna do stuff from the original badly. Like at least it's like okay, if it's gonna be a musical, they have to write new music. You know, they can't just sing a butchered
Well,
fucking version of Akuna Matata.
I will say that I heard in terms of that one that they are going to do their version, which will be terrible probably, of "He Lives in You."
Yeah. Well, no, see that's the thing is I don't think a Circle of Life. Circle of Life is the only good song in this movie, and that's because they just took the original and put it into live action. Like that's all they did with CGI animals. So it's like yeah, if they do a similar thing of like of with He Lives in You, then it might not be bad. But yeah, I don't. What's the point? Like I mean,
Also,
just oh
also, I wanna just say this again. The thing that drives me the most crazy about that movie is that everyone always calls it the live action Lion King. It's not live action. Stop calling it that.
I mean,
It's not live
it's
action.
the foot.
It's photorealistic. It's not live action.
Yeah,
There's no live action animal in that movie. There's no real animal in there. Like if you want to call some of the other movies live action movies, okay, sure. It's 90% human, 10% or 10% CG.
yeah.
There are no live action beings in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. And to be fair, it's not devoid. The thing that
Let's
frustrates me
let's
about it,
call a spade
um,
and call it what it
the
is.
thing that frustrates me about it, and it's part of what I'm interested, why I'm interested in, and I guess it will be the nice thing I say about the Lion King is there's interesting stuff in there, and it frustrates me when again it's like oh shit no, it can't do any of the interesting stuff because it has to focus on doing the stuff from the original badly, like the idea that Scar. I mean, it makes his actions in that movie a bit more unbelievable because it's like they all understand that Scar is this weird, isolated loner who has fringe ideas and he doesn't live with the pride and nobody really trusts him. It makes why does everyone believe him later on? It makes it unbelievable. But the idea of the inner workings of and this is gonna make some people go but the idea of the inner workings of the political system of their world of like oh okay the hyenas have their own like country like they like there's this idea of oh when Simba and Nala go to the elephant graveyard they're entering hyena territory and that's breaking some sort of truce like that stuff is interesting but like the movie doesn't have time to deal with that or focus on that because it has to do once again the stuff from the original movie badly and like that's why I'm interested in the prequel because oh that movie can do that stuff and talk about and be about again something different something unique and the thing I learned is like I'm not against these movies when they're doing a straight adaptation like when you're just doing but if you're gonna do it do an adaptation don't do a recreation the Lion King movie is a recreation a bad recreation Lady and the Tramp is a fun adaptation like that's the difference you know what I mean and the same with Aladdin when Aladdin's
Yeah,
allowed to be an adaptation then it's interesting and it's worth watching but when it's just recreating stuff from the original movie it's not interesting and it's not fun because if I wanted to watch that original version I'd go watch that original version.
that's just it. Those original versions exist already and they're better.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like why would I watch this cheap watered down version when
Exactly.
there's the better version?
Exactly. Okay. Now, I don't. I see now I'm torn because I did say that, but after we've talked this out, I don't. I think it might be a tie still. Dumbo. We're gonna round this out with Dumbo. Dumbo was awful. It was bad. It's the worst kind of taking the original and like like they rapid fire through the original movie within the first like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then it's just this weird subplot of like, oh, sorry, I want to start this way. If I had a nickel for every Tim Burton movie that had Michael Keaton and Danny DeVito in it that I hated, I'd have two nickels. But it's weird that it happened twice because this is somehow a Tim Burton movie. I forgot it was a Tim Burton movie for most of it, which I think is why it's worse than Lion King, because it's like this is Tim Burton. It doesn't even have any of his like it's not weird and gothic. It's not weird and upsetting. It's just dull and generic, and it's stretched out the original plot of Dumbo. Dumbo is too much like an actual elephant for me to really like get into him as a character. It's way too focused on human characters, and there's this weird subplot with this like pseudo. He's played by Michael Keaton. He's like this mishmash of like Walt Disney, and like Elon Musk, and like your dickbag fucking billionaire. And like he buys Dumbo and Dumbo's mom, and there's this whole second section. And it's just awful. It was like, oh my god, I hate this, and it's too long. It's too long. It's like 2 hours, over 2 hours. And it's like this. If this were maybe an hour and a half, bring back. This is my plea, because I don't have much else to say about Dumbo, because Dumbo was fucking awful. Bring back simple hour and a half, hour and 20-minute kids movies that are easy, to the point, and don't require a bunch of extraneous backstory. I'm begging of you. Stop with these like these like an eternity long fucking two. Little Mermaid was 2.5 hours. Why? Like I almost said that was the worst, because none of them were 2.5 hours long, but that one was 2.5. And I was just like,
the thing that makes that like the thing that makes that so frustrating too is these are supposed to be kids movies, and as I've seen when I go and watch like animated movies in the theater and stuff, children don't have the attention span to sit down for 2.5 hours.
No.
So at that point,
I don't.
who is that movie for? Is it, if it's not for kids, because kids can't sit there for that long, is it for adults? No, because the adults will just go and watch the one that they grew up with.
Exactly. And so yeah, it doesn't have the bright and colors. Like a lot of these don't have the colors. Like Lion King is just as bad as The Little Mermaid in that regard, where it's like this is lacking all of the color that the originals had, that made it enticing to children. It's just like this sort of dark like hue, and it's like, oh, it's awful to look at, not fun. But going back to Little Mermaid, I forgot to tell you, they do Big Ursula, but it's awful. Like for whatever reason, they couldn't afford to CGI Melissa McCarthy into a big face, so you don't even see her face. It's completely obscured in darkness. Like it's so. Oh, and also,
I mean, yeah, that's probably for the same reason why they didn't have any of those animals, because that should be expensive,
yeah. And it's like, Ariel is the one who impales her on the ship instead of Eric. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna wrap up our trip down Disney Lane, and I'm gonna wrap up the book reports. We're gonna wrap up the show. Yes, we're absolutely gonna wrap up the show. We were talking last week. We were speculating about what the Beast's name is. I should have brought this up when we were talking about Beauty and the Beast. The Beast's name, Jordan, is Adam. That's his name.
Oh, did they gave him one in the live action?
I don't know. I just googled what is the Beast's name, and it was Prince Adam. I don't know if that's from supplemental material, if it's in the original somewhere, if it's in the remake. They didn't say it out loud in the remake, I don't think. But according to Google,
that might come from if because Beauty and the Beast is obviously based on like a Brothers Grimm type story or something, I'm guessing. Much like how a lot of the
it's a French novel.
Much like how much like how a lot of those old Disney movies were.
Yeah.
So it could be that in the original story that was his name.
Maybe, yeah. I honestly, I don't know. I just googled it, typed in what is the beast's name, and it was like Adam. I was like, oh, it's Adam. He has a name. Interesting. All right. So with that, that was the Disney live action remakes. I hated way less of these than I thought I was going to. There were some genuine surprises in there. Um, with that, we're going to for the next week's assignment. I would like you. I would like you to select to try and find at least two movies you've seen from the 1960s. Um, I'm hoping they'll be. If you can
1960s.
only find one, I know of one for sure that you've seen. I'm hoping for two. I'm hoping for two. Um, and then pick two that you haven't seen. And for me, I would like you to pick a decade for me.
Uh,
Keep
uh,
keep it within the realm where films are easy to find if you could, reasonably easy to find. So like, don't be like the 1920s, please.
70s.
You want me to go one after you? 70s?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So you're going to do the 1960s, I'll going to do the 1970s.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So next week we're going to be talking about the 1960s and we're going to be talking about the 1970s apparently. So look forward to that. If you want to come and join us with your own book reports, that is the assignment for this week. So you can come on back next week. We're going to be talking about that. With that, we are going to wrap up the podcast. This has been another episode of the Spur of the Moment podcast. Um, as always, if you want to get in contact with the show, like if you want to provide us with a sponsorship or you want to suggest a book report, we are on Discord. You can suggest it on our Discord. I'll put a link to the Discord in the description. You can also email the show if you would like. You can send us a letter. At the email is itsjustinsbusiness@gmail.com. That is my show email. You can email there. Please, I beg you, don't get weird if you do. I don't want to see anyone's genitals. If you would like to find me, you can find me. I'm on TikTok. TikTok is becoming difficult lately, but I'm still on TikTok at Justin Spurr, my name at TikTok. You can come check me out there. I do this, but shorter. Jordan, where can we find you as always?
I do Minecraft Mondays on Twitch on Zethgore187.
Yes, you can
So,
find him there on
yeah.
Monday. Hopefully we can get the audio version of this up sooner than 2 days later. But regardless, we will be back next Saturday, hopefully, to talk again.